Good morning. I'm Denise Smiler, Chair of the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board. I would like to ask everyone to please silence their cell phones and all electronic devices at this time. Also, while masks are no longer mandatory, it seems really loud, are no longer mandatory, please feel free to wear one if you believe it is required or necessary for your own well-being. With 7 board members present, I'd like to call today's meeting to order. In addition to the 7 board members, we also have our ex officio members, Kristen Heidingsfelder, representing Pat Brown, Acting Secretary for the Department of Revenue, Fred Strathmeyer, representing Russell Redding, Secretary for the Department of Agriculture, and Jennifer Langen, representing Stacy Garrity, State Treasurer. Thank you, ex officios, for joining us. I'd now like to ask everyone to please stand and join me in a recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
By way of announcements, the board held an executive session yesterday, Tuesday, June 27th, to discuss personnel matters, pending litigation, and to conduct quasi-judicial deliberations relating to matters coming before the board. Our first order of business will be a public hearing on the Woodlands Fayette LLC doing business as Lady Luck Casino, Nemacolin, and the Office of Enforcement Counsel regarding the Category 3 license renewal of Woodlands Fayette LLC, which operates the Lady Luck Casino, Nemacolin. I would ask if there are any non-attorneys who will be presenting evidence today in this proceeding that they please stand and be sworn in by the court reporter at this time.
If you could all just raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you'll give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. I would also ask that everyone who is going to speak to please state and spell your name for the court reporter prior to your presentation. Lady Luck, you may begin.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners, ex officio officers. I am Michael Fabius from the law firm Ballard Spahr, representing Woodlands Fayette LLC, the Category 3 licensee for Lady Luck Casino and the subsidiary of Nemacolin Woodlands. Before the public meeting started, I provided the court reporter with the spelling of my surname and the surname of each of our speakers. We are very pleased to be back before you for the renewal of our Category 3 license. It was last October that we were before some of you for the public input hearing, and before that it was December 2016 when we last presented for a license renewal. With a few new faces on the board and at the resort, let me take a moment to introduce our speakers, and then I will turn it over to them to make a presentation about the resort and the casino. To my left is Trey Matthew, Nemacolin's managing director. Trey is in the midst of his second tenure at Nemacolin, returning early in the pandemic to retake the reins. He is the resort operator with extensive experience leading operations for both privately owned and corporate owned resorts, particularly in the high-end and luxury markets. A little over 20 years ago, Trey first started at Nemacolin as general manager, serving in that role until 2010, leaving for a time and to take over the reins at other resorts like Salamander Resort and Spa and the Oasis at Death Valley. To his left is John Gaboni, Lady Luck's Casino's new general manager. As you know from the suitability report prepared for you, CDI's tenure as the management company concluded this week, and the resort's taken over direct management under John's new leadership. We are delighted to introduce John as the new general manager. He joins us with 22 years of increasing responsibility in marketing and finance at property and corporate levels. He was most recently with Hollywood Casino Toledo. Prior to that, he also worked at Hollywood Casino in Perryville, Maryland, and Hollywood Casino in Bangor, Maine. To his left is Mike Herman, our Director of Marketing at Food and Beverage. He's been serving in that role first for the management company since 2021, and he transitioned over with the employees at Casino to the resort's employment. Also behind us, and we'll do a little musical chairs, is Tony Rodio, Nemacolin's newly engaged gaming consultant. Tony's well known to the board and in the industry as a highly accomplished gaming executive as CEO of 4 major gaming companies, most recently Caesars Entertainment and Tropicana Entertainment. He is now one of the principals for RRC Gaming, which Nemo Cullen engaged as our gaming consultant to advise and assist in the assumption of casino operations. In the audience, I just want to acknowledge that they're with us today is Sherry Bomar, Nemo Cullen's Secretary and Corporate Counsel in the first row. Next to her is Valerie Means, our Regulatory Compliance Officer at the property. And also in the audience is Lou Frascogna, CDI's, Churchill's Senior Counsel and Corporate Compliance Officer. With that, let me hand it off to Trey, who'll start with a reintroduction of the resort. And at the conclusion of the presentation, I'll just have brief housekeeping remarks.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board, and ex officio officers. My name is Trey Matthew, Trey Matheu. And as Michael mentioned, here's a speaker list that we probably can go past this slide and go straight to our agenda. Today, we'd like to take some time to reintroduce the property, a quick tour, some of the upgrades and some of the direction that the property is currently heading in. We'll go over casino facts for the Churchill and the last 10 years of operation. We'll look at economic impacts of the local community. We'll look at Lady Luck Casino as an amenity to the resort, a very important amenity to the resort. We'll also address diversity, compliance, tourism impacts, community service, casino management transition, and the casino renovation concepts. To start off, for those of you who haven't been to the resort, Nemo Cullen is a world-class luxury resort. Multiple awards have been awarded to the resort. It's located on actually a little bit over 2,000 acres in southwestern Pennsylvania. We host about 350,000 guests annually from 48 states and 6 countries over the last year. Approximately 1,200 associates are employed at the resort and an annual payroll of $36 million. I'm going to show you just an idea. This is a small map. This shows you the layout of the property. With the room base that we have, about 320 rooms, the interesting thing about Nemo Cullen is how spread out it's been. Nemo Cullen, I started with the company 21 years ago, and I've seen it grow. Was here for 8 years as general manager, internal promotion to general manager, left for 10 years and came back in the middle of the pandemic. And one of the things that I've always loved about Nemo Cullen is how it grows organically. And when I came back, the only way I can describe the property to everybody is really a collection of collections. And we're going to go through some of those collections today. So not only is it a property that has beautiful rooms and nice food and beverage, but we have a $50 million art collection that's one of the largest privately held and displayed to public in the country. We have collections of cars in the form of a museum. We have a collection in the airplanes in the form of a museum. We collect animals. We have an exotic animal zoo, where we've taken rehabilitated animals that were born in captivity and have educational experiences for the guests. We also have everything from spa to skiing to dog sledding to so on and so forth. But this gives you an idea of the breadth of the property itself. Accommodations and awards. The Falling Rock, it has been a 5-diamond, 5-star facility since 2009. The Chateau is a Forbes 4-star and 4-diamond, AAA 4-diamond facility. Grand Lodge, we have just awarded the Best Wellness and Transformation 2023. We'll go into a little bit about that. We've currently under construction the first phase of about $250 million investment. First, we'll call it phase 1.5. Going forward, we've been recognized in Travel and Leisure magazine and Condé Nast Traveler magazine. Our golf courses continually show up in top 10 best golf courses and #1 best golf course you can play in the state of Pennsylvania. Taking a next look and going into the first part of the collections, we took a look at lodging at Nemo Cullen. Lodging at Nemo Cullen is basically looked into at this piece. We have 3 active lodging situations. We have the Chateau, which is 124 rooms based on the Chateau in Paris, almost ripped off directly. In fact, if you look at the chandeliers and the candelabras in the lobby, it's as close as a representation as I've seen. Falling Rock itself was a Frank Lloyd-inspired house. As all of you know, the Falling Water is located about a half an hour away from the property and was the inspiration. We brought a architect in who had studied under Frank Lloyd Wright to get as much authenticity as we could. And then the estates and homes are private homes and townhomes that we operate, very family-friendly. Some of them are right next to the zoo, right behind the lion cage, and when he gets going, everybody enjoys it during the evening. Some of the amenities that we've talked about in the resort, as I mentioned, the Woodland Spa, 40 treatment rooms. We keep pushing the envelope and had introduced the Holistic Healing Center. Brought in a doctor of acupuncture not too long ago, and working with things from everything from apothecary program that he's put into place to saltwater float therapy, infrared light therapy, cryotherapy, and my personal favorite, the Norvathor system. This is just a piece of it. We also have activities and amenities, including off-road driving, the horseback riding. We have one of the finest sporting clays facilities in the country. 30 different stations, 2 different courses that we work with that. We have upland bird hunting. We will look for archery and also fly fishing expeditions, and some gold medal streams in the state of Pennsylvania, located not too far from the resort. We also open up the Peak Activity Center coming into 2021, which includes year-round heated pool, outside heated pool, indoor axe throwing, cosmic bowling. Just introduced Segway tours this spring, and 2 world-renowned golf courses, as I mentioned before. The 18-hole, we had a tournament, a PGA tournament there from 2003 to 2006, the 84 Lumber Classic on the Mystic Rock Golf Course, and then recently opened in 2016, another Pete Dye golf course, Shepherd's Rock. 2 years ago, we opened up the Golf Academy and Training School, where we put in TrackMan simulators and cat-out swing programs. The reason I'm going through all these amenities and activities is I think this is an important part of what Nemacolin offers and who we offer it to. It is a family-friendly resort that offers something to everyone. And we have a bunch of different seasons. We have a family season, we have a retiree and younger season, and we offer something for everyone. We offer family-friendly activities, we offer kids clubs, we offer babysitting, and we believe very strongly that going forward that the casino will continue to be a very important amenity for our guests as well as for the local community. Restaurant collection, we have a variety of different restaurants, everything from casual restaurants to fine dining restaurants. We have authentic Italian restaurant. We're making everything from scratch. And work very closely with local vendors. In fact, all of our eggs and chicken product, as well as our pork product, come within 10 miles of the resort itself. Here's another list. I think I've gone over most of the family-friendly amenities, but we do offer something for everyone. And to talk a little bit about the resort renovations that we've either are currently undergoing or that we've done in the past. As I mentioned before, this is the first phase of a $250 million investment. Actually, the first phase was creating Wisteria, which was an associate housing complex that we opened up the weekend before Memorial Day. We added 28 units of 2-bedroom apartments, in essence, with luxury fittings, fireplaces, granite, so on and so forth. We created, in the community that we live, there's not very much, there's no grocery stores. So we opened a grocery store for our associates and for the community, as well as created an associate pub and a recreational facility that they can access 24 hours a day to be able to work out, something that just is with our location, the closest gym is about 25 to 30 minutes away. So these are all investments that we made recently. And this right now is the resort renovation. You can see the before, the after pictures for the resort, or for the lodge renovations, Grand Lodge renovations specifically, are all renderings at this point. We fully expect to be open to the public between August 20th and 22nd, and are moving in that direction. But just for clarifications, these are what these are sort of before and after pictures. We'll move into some of the lodging facilities. These are all renderings of the rooms, a luxury product that we're bringing on to the property. Here we say we're opening on August 26th. We actually have some members and some close friends of the resort coming in on the 22nd of August, hence that confusion. And then going to this property over the last 2 years, these are projects that we've added to the resort. The Peak, as we mentioned, was a year-round facility, including cabanas and entertainment stages. In fact, Memorial Day weekend, we had the Beach Boys play at the Peak, which was a great concert for everybody. We had, as I mentioned before, the Golf Academy was a major product for us, opened up about 18 months ago. The Blue Room, this is the beginning of the renovations that we're looking at the property. This has got a hidden door leading into it, and you have actually a riddle to find where the Blue Room is, plus a special way to ring the doorbell and be greeted at it. So a little bit of fun to the resort as well. Keep investing in our golf products. We did a complete bunker renovation last summer, and then our next project to come online in the next couple of weeks is a solar roof for the resort. We've taken a very hard stance on, or a very proactive stance on greening and becoming more sustainable at the resort, introducing a lot of initiatives, but kicking it off right now with the new solar roof. The resort continues to have a lot of impact in the local community. So just to give you some ideas, the average household income at the resort has increased, almost doubled since 2019 to about $500,000 a year. We've seen a 20% increase in travel year over year from 21 to 22. We see that trend continuing from 22 to 23. Increase in driving range from 3.5 hours to 6.5 hours. What does that mean for the resort? That means we're pulling in people from Chicago, as far west as Chicago on a drive basis, and as far east as Manhattan, again on a drive basis. Both, I think Chicago is about 6.5 hours, Manhattan's about 5.5 to 6, depending on the traffic. We've seen median value of guest stay incremental spend increase pretty significantly to about what we call total revenue per occupied room. It's about $3,000, up significantly from pre-pandemic, which is about $1,800. In the local area, we're starting to see our demographics, really that family environment. So majority of our demographics, 45 to 54, we're seeing a lot more multi-generational travel. So grandparents, sons, daughters, grandchildren coming together, and as part of the renovations that we're going through, addressing those with larger meeting spaces, or excuse me, dining spaces, private dining rooms, et cetera, et cetera. Fort Necessity National Battlefield is close to the property, Braddock's Grave, the Flight 93 National Memorial, Laurel Caverns, and at least 2 of the homes are within about a half-an-hour drive of the resort of Frank Lloyd Wright's homes, Falling Water and Kentuck Knob. We've seen our average length of stay increase as well. So not only we bring them to the resort, but by bringing them into the community and having them integrate in adventure sports and art, et cetera, whereas we saw the average length of stay grow from 1.8 nights at the resort to about 2.7 nights at the resort in 2022. We see that trend continue moving forward. To talk a little bit about the diversity at Nemacolin, about 71.6% of our population identifies as white. We do have 9.3% of the operations are Black or African American, 8.4% Hispanic or Latino, and 7% not specified. When you look at the Fayette County, the next slide, the Fayette County demographic and diversity, we're significantly ahead and more diverse than the community would dictate, where 91.3% of that community is Caucasian or white, identifies as. We've done that through a bunch of different programs, including J1 programs, TN programs, working closely with universities and colleges throughout the resort. About 2 years ago, we started the Accelerated Learning and Development Program to take people out of college who have had education and experience in the hospitality and fast-track them into management positions. We're also using that for internal promotion. So we pushed that, and about half of our class, our graduating classes, we're in our 3rd class now, are internal people that decided that they wanted to put their hand up and get fast track for management experience. It's been a great program for us. We look at sex. We have 49% male, 51% female at the resort. And residency, about 86.3% of our residents do come from the state of Pennsylvania, but we're very close to that T that where Maryland, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania all meet. So we do have representation from Maryland and Pennsylvania as well. Some of these other areas, Texas, Virginia, West Virginia, are that show up on the survey simply because we have a lot of interns at the property that are identifying in those areas for permanent residency. Community involvement. Nemacolins taking great pride in helping the community through a variety of different things. Are actively involved in various community organizations. I put here over 500,000 in donations, but quite frankly, we're just under $900,000 in donations to the community and to the area in the running 12 months at the property. These include a Fayette County EMS. The reason that we have emergency response in what we call the mountain or the hill coming up from that section of the community is that Nemacolin subsidized about $100,000 a year to be able to have ambulances up on the mountain. And that not only is for guests and patrons of the casino, but more importantly, it's for our community, our associates. A significant amount of them, as I mentioned before, we have housing on the property as well as people who have worked for generations in the local community. Secondly, we also have the fire department, which we've subsidized very heavily over the last couple of years to make sure that they have equipment that's able to service all of the buildings in and around Fayette County and the mountain specifically. We've been involved in the Westmoreland County Community Center or Community College Educational Foundation, Big Brothers and Big Sisters, Project Bundle Up, and a variety of different areas in here. One of the things that we've done a lot of work with is the Pittsburgh Community Food Bank, where not only are we donating money, but we donate hours of associates' time. The Pittsburgh County Food Bank, or Community Food Bank, also serves Fayette County, which is one of the poorer counties in the state of Pennsylvania. So we see a direct helping our community directly through that. I think one of the, as we mentioned before, or as I mentioned before, the casino offers Nemacolin's guests a pretty significant amenity. We find that there's a lot of nighttime activity over to the casino, and we think there could be a stronger bond. Hence, we're the direction we're coming and looking or we are managing the casino directly. Casino offers additional food and entertainment options for resort guests, as well as we're excited for the new transition and renovations we're set to create. I'll let Tony speak to that a little bit later, or John and Tony speak to that. But it is an amenity. It's a popular amenity. I think it could be a lot more popular. We're looking at investing a significant amount of capital to bring it up to speed, and are very excited to do that as part of our $250 million multi-phase renovation over the next few years. And I'll pass to John to talk about Lady Gluck.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners, ex officio officers. My name is John Gibboni, John-Gibboni. Before I begin, I just wanted to give you just a very quick background on myself. So I've been in the gaming industry about 22 years, licensed in 5 jurisdictions, spent most of my time in finance, dabbled a little bit in marketing, but I wanted to say that I'm really excited and appreciative to be here in Pennsylvania. I was born here, my son was born here. I have a lot of family roots in the area. So again, just really, really excited to be here. So some casino facts on Lady Luck. Opened in July of 2013, so we most recently celebrated a 10-year anniversary with the Lady Luck employees, which went really well. They were very appreciative of that. It was approximately a $60 million investment, 600 slot machines, 26 table games, a restaurant, Lone Wolf, and about 167 employees. So we do have some casino renovations planned, as Trey had mentioned. So we want to create a high limit area. We want to reconfigure the slot floor to refresh that, get a new layout, and update the entranceway to create a new sense of arrival. So for the historical information and local impact, I'm actually going to turn it over to Mike Ehrman.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair, Commissioners and ex officios. My name is Mike Herman, Mikeherrmann. I'm going to go over just some of what the casino has contributed to over the last 10 years. So going into the casino local impact with a 2% share agreement with Fayette County and Wharton Township, it's generated almost $10 million for the county and the township. Going on to the casino annual tax and license revenue, the breakdown is gaming tax over the 10 years has been just under $140 million. The one-time gaming license fee of $12.5 million. Back in June of 2019, we paid $1 million for the one-time Category 3 access restriction fee, and then about $6.2 million in non-gaming taxes from operations. So as I just mentioned, the non-gaming operations generated about $6.2 million, mainly coming from unemployment and state income tax. Gaming taxes, as I mentioned, is just a little bit under $140 million over the 10 years. When we look at casino purchasing local, which is the state of Pennsylvania, in the 10 years it's just been a little over $63 million. We get into the minority women-owned business. Over the 10 years, it's been $12 million that has been spent, mainly in non-construction. And then just total purchasing throughout the 10 years, it has been $268 million that this property has purchased over the time. Going into casino payroll and benefits. Over the 10 years, we've paid out $73.5 million in payroll, with benefits being $15 million, and 85% of our staff is full-time who receive those benefits. When we start getting into just associate residency, 95% comes from Pennsylvania, 3% from West Virginia, 2% from Maryland. Getting into diversity, when you look at gender, male is 61%, female is 39%. But when you look at supervisor and above, female is 56% and male is 44%. Then when we go into race, 84% is Caucasian, 6.5% African American, 5% Hispanic, roughly 1% is Asian, and 4% is other not specified. When you look at it from a supervisor and above perspective, Caucasian is 84%, African American is 12%, and then Hispanic and Asian make up 2%, and other not specified is 2%. And going into compliance, kind of focus here on unattended minors. We've added 12 new signs throughout the parking lot for a total of 21. Basically, when you come in from either side of our parking lot, you end up passing 2 signs at a minimum before you get into the door. We make floor announcements every hour, just letting people know not to leave children in their cars or unattended. We also implemented parking patrols every 15 minutes of the hour. And we also have, when we're closed, surveillance scans and make sure that there's no unattended minors at all throughout the property. So we've also did some surveillance upgrades to the parking lots. We've added a couple infrared cameras, so over into the main parking lot area, and we've also added new cables running through to allow higher data transmission rates. And then continuing with enhancements to compliance, we've been doing targeted departmental training, included but not limited to just ICs, self-exclusions, Title 31, Veridox system, counterfeit bills, emergency evacuations, active shooter, and unattended minor. We do responsible gaming training at every orientation, new hire, and we also do an annual refresher for all the employees annually. That does include the unattended minors as well. We have compulsive and gambling collateral at 2 locations, at the main entrance and cage area. And we spend approximately $15,000 on employee training annually for signage, collateral, reinforcement training, sponsorships, memberships, as well as ramp certifications. And then that is it for me, and I will pass it over to Tim.
Good morning, everyone. Tony Rodio, Tonyrodio. I'll talk a little bit about myself and my firm in a minute. First, wanted to spend a moment talking about the transition. Churchill's agreement to manage the property was due to expire on June 30th. it was agreed by everybody that it made more sense to close the transaction on June 26th because the casino is currently closed on Mondays and Tuesdays. So it gave us 2 days to make sure that all the systems and the conversion and the employees and staff was ready for the new day. Happy to report that effective 9 o'clock this morning, the casino has reopened under the management of these gentlemen to my right, and all's gone very smoothly. All of the employees, with the exception of a couple, have been rehired with the new company. And the existing general manager, the previous general manager, Marianne Rutherford, who was wonderful during the transition, I must say, had decided to stay with Churchill, so that allowed us to bring on John, who's already told you a little bit about himself. And I agree, I think he's going to be a wonderful, I've known John for almost 20 years myself, and I think he's going to be a wonderful addition to the team. Also acquired all of the assets that will allow us to continue the operation. As I said, myself and my firm, I've been in the gaming industry 43 years, pretty soon in the next couple months. Sorry to even say that. I've been CEO, as was mentioned earlier, 4 different gaming companies. At the end of last year, I decided corporate America or corporate Canada, because my last job was actually in Canada, it was time for me to move on, and excited about this opportunity to work as a consultant with my 2 partners. Second partner, Mac Rossoff, comes from the investment banking side, mostly in the casino industry. He's been doing that for over 40 years. I've known Mac for over 20 years. He helped buy and sell different casinos and companies with the various firms that I worked for. The last partner, Matthew Cole, I actually hired Matt into the industry almost 20 years ago. He's our marketing expert. He brings with him a proprietary marketing program that allows us to be very specific and targeted with our marketing offers, which we think is going to be a big enhancement and assist us in growing the revenues for the property. I'm going to allow John to speak to the specific initiatives that we've put in place. Before getting to that, I've always looked at this property from afar and actually inquired when I was CEO of Tropicana about acquiring the management agreement here, because I always felt that it never met its full potential. And I think the biggest reason for that, there's been 3 very prominent and distinguished gaming companies that have managed it, but it's always been managed independent of the resort, and always felt that it would enhance both the resort and the casino if it was under one management, under one umbrella. And that's what we've concluded here and working towards. So I think that element is going to allow the casino customers to have access to all the wonderful amenities and the service levels that are provided at the resort. I mean, it is second to none. So I think that's a big change for how it's been managed historically. As I said, I'm going to let John speak to the specific initiatives that we're going to employ over the next number of years.
All right, thanks, Tony. Good morning again. So some of the things that we have going on, and you've been hearing a lot about it, is we're going to renovate the casino to create an attractive amenity. And we really just want to line up the resort experience with the casino experience. And I will get into that a little bit more with some renderings. Replenish the slot product. There hasn't been really any changes there in the last 4 years, so we want to bring in some new product to refresh that floor. As Tony said, implement some new marketing strategies to try to drive the database. Again, the resort, we want to leverage unused occupancy, try to put casino guests in there to penetrate new gaming markets. Re-energize the staff, right? We keep talking about we want the same experience you get at the resort to be down at the casino, so we're going to be training them in the resort standards. And lastly, get to 7-day operation, which is my top priority right now, to get people hired so that we can make that happen. Very important. So on the renovation front, we're going to invest about $10 million, and the project is slated to begin in August and finish by Christmas time. This will include a high-limit area with slots, table games, and a small food offering. Reimagined entrance, a casino bar, and a coffee bar and entertainment area. And we've engaged Westar. They have 30 years experience in this, and these are some of the renderings. Again, seamless transition for the resort coming to the casino. So here you can see the reimagined front, give a better sense of arrival. Again, trying to catch up and match what the resort is doing and have a seamless transition. With that, I'll turn it back to Michael Fabius.
Thank you, John. With that, just before we close, one housekeeping item, if we could move our slide deck into the record, Madam Chair.
Any objection?
No objection.
And other than that, I would just take this opportunity to thank the staff of the board for their professionalism, their diligence, both in the lead up to this license renewal hearing and with the simultaneous transition of the management of the casino this week. We really appreciate the diligence of the staff.
Thank you. Enforcement Council, do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good morning, Chair, Commissioners. Kelsey Scrotto, SCI, RRO, TTO, Assistant Enforcement Counsel with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. I'm here along with Michelle Fogle, FOGLE, who is also an Assistant Enforcement Counsel. I'm going to direct your attention to slide 4 of the slide deck.
There.
Slide 4 of the slide deck for the public input hearing indicated that there were approximately 1,100 employees. And then slide 4 indicates that there's 1,200. What accounted for that change?
The accounting of the change happens as seasonal operation. So we will at any given time run between 900 and 1,200 associates, depending on the outdoor activities, golf courses being open, et cetera, et cetera. In October of last year, we had about 1,100 associates. As of yesterday, we had 1,186 associates.
Okay. And then slide 12. So this slide mentions Kids Club and babysitting services as some of the kid-friendly amenities. Are the babysitting services, the Kids Club, are those available to casino patrons?
At this point, the amenities and activities on the property are available for overnight guests and members of the resort. Having said that, I think as we move along these facilities, we can continue to take a look at opportunities to engage the local community if that becomes a demand.
All right. And then slide 13. So this slide indicates that there's a complete renovation of 97 hotel keys of the original lodge accommodations. Is that referring to the physical card you sent to the room? Is that referred to the rooms? Could you kind of explain what?
Yeah, I apologize. I think this is just hotel jargon for the number of rooms that we have.
All right, and then slide 25. So this slide indicates that there's over $500,000 in donations to date. How much has the resort donated since the time of the public input hearing that was held on October 26th of 2022?
Approximately $370,000. The running 12-month for the resort is a total of $876,279.
Okay, and then slide 36. So regarding the benefits, what qualifies an employee to be eligible for benefits?
I think there's two different things. I think all associates at the resort are eligible full-time or part-time for things such as discounts at the resort, for access to Wisteria, where we're running Wisteria at a loss for associates to be able to use the pub, to be able to use the exercise facility. We do have tuition reimbursement that's available for full and part-time associates. The only thing that really differentiates full and part-time really comes to the medical, dental, life insurance, things along those lines.
Okay, so is there 401k match as well?
401k matches for full-time.
Okay. Yep. All right, and then I would direct your attention to slides 38 and 39. Right, so the demographics of the supervisory staff was discussed, but what percentage of the supervisory staff come from internal promotions?
At the casino, it's 86%. 86% from the casino. At the resort, it's 37%.
Okay. And then slide 40. Are there physical signs inside of the casino regarding unattended minors?
We have them on TVs, on the full-size TVs, 15 TVs, that rotates every 3 to 4 minutes.
Okay, about how many of those are there? Okay. And if a guest of the resort wanted to, say, walk to the casino, would they have to pass by those signs or signage out in the parking lots?
Yeah, there are multiple signs that guests can walk to, and there are no paths that actually connect the resort. It's contiguous but not connected to the casino or the resort property. If they do come in, they typically come through the parking lots. We have signs at the entrances, and then signs posted throughout the parking lot to get to the casino itself, as well as signage in the casino doors.
Okay, and then how far are the guest rooms that are on the property? How far are those from the casino itself?
So it varies. The closest lodging is Falling Rock. It's about 0.9 miles away. The furthest away lodging is about 2.1 miles away.
Okay. All right, and then slide 41. For the unattended minor procedure, which casino departments receive the unattended minor procedure training?
All of them. All of them.
Okay. All right, and then for the compulsive and problem gambling collateral, by collateral, do you mean brochures, signs, or something else?
Yeah, signage, brochures, community, like even the large signs, so it's just all print.
All right, and then what you had, it was mentioned that there were some employees that were RAMP certified. What percentage of casino employees are RAMP certified?
49%.
Okay. Can I direct your attention to slides 42 and 43, please? Is there an anticipated time frame that RRC will be working with Woodlands, for instance, would just be as needed, or?
We have a 3-year agreement, but we will be present at least monthly, but whenever needed.
Okay. Then slide 44. The slide indicates that the slot product will be replenished to be more competitive. Can you go into more detail regarding this replenishment?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So we're currently evaluating the floor. As I mentioned, we haven't had a refresh in 4 years. So we want to see what's going to make sense for the floor, how it can be reconfigured. We're talking to slot manufacturers, and we hope to have a plan in place soon for what we're going to purchase.
Okay, and then the slide also indicates that RRC and property management will leverage unused hotel occupancy for casino patrons to penetrate new gaming markets.
Yeah, so go ahead.
Okay, no, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine, go ahead.
This goes back to the point about why it makes sense for the resort and the casino be managed simultaneously by the same company. When they have unused occupancy, it's easy to fill those rooms with casino guests on a very short notice. So that gives us a big advantage to be able to provide that amenity for highly regarded casino customers. So that'll be the use of the rooms.
Okay. And then is the current slot product, is that leased or owned?
We have like 12 games, I believe, that are leased.
It's like 2%.
Yeah, and the rest of it's owned.
Okay. All right, and then the slide also indicates that there's a goal to be a 7-day operation. Is there a time frame for that?
So there's no time frame in place, but we are working very hard to get people hired. And I'd also like to have a buffer, because if we go 7 days a week, I do not want to go backwards. Example is someone calls out and then we have to close because we're not properly staffed. So it is my highest priority, and I really want to get that in place, but I want to feel good about it.
All right, can you describe what the daily operations are?
The daily operation?
The hours.
Oh, yeah, sure. So right now we're closed on Monday and Tuesday, and we run from 9 a.m. to 2 a.m.
Okay, and so is the eventual plan to be 24/7, 365 days a year? Is that kind of the end goal then?
So I think you have to evaluate that, right? So first we got to get 7 days a week, right? And then we have to look at the volumes. And if the volumes dictate that we need to be open and we have the staffing, then we would do that. But again, it just has to make sense for us to be open and have customers to service during those times.
Okay. And then I just had a few questions outside of the slide deck. Is Lady Luck Casino, is it facing any current staffing, hiring, or retention challenges?
Well, we've got a few challenges, again, just trying to get 7 days a week. For our current operations, we're doing okay. But as I said, we really want to get open 7 days a week. And another nice thing from the resort is it's adding extra horsepower to our recruiting efforts, and we're already seeing, more candidate inflow, and we're getting very close to having 7 day a week.
Okay, and then my last question is related to skill games. What, if any, impact does Lady Luck believe that skill games are having on Lady Luck's revenue?
I'll let our folks chime in as they see fit. I don't know that we have scientific data, but we certainly see it as a competitive product, for us across the industry. And in that sense, if consumers are choosing between going to a skill game in a convenience store versus going to a slot machine in a casino, it's definitely an impact. But we can't quantify it easily.
I would agree 100% with what Michael said, but it certainly can't help. You have more slot product out there under whatever term you want to refer to it as. It has to diminish the visits and the share of wallet that the casinos are getting.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Commissioner Dermody.
Do you offer, or you plan on offering any transportation from the hotel over to the casino?
Yes, Commissioner, we are currently running that program and have done so before. In fact, that's one of our areas to assist with continuous education about unattended minors as they come onto the shuttle system. So all of our shuttle drivers, we have 10 shuttles that are running for guests, another 4 shuttles that are running constantly for associate transportation throughout the properties. So they're all trained in that discipline as well.
It's there, in addition for the casino, it's also there for all the amenities. And so you can ride, you can get around the large resort through the shuttle, whether you're going to the casino or to the shooting range.
Right. And that runs the hours that the casino is open?
We run 24 hours a day in our shuttle services.
Right. How about a sports book? There's not a sports book there, is that correct?
There's not a sports book, no, sir.
Any plans?
We're always open to plans. I think that may be in the future.
Well, I would think some of the clientele that you're seeking to introduce to the casino would be interested. All right, thanks. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, Commissioner, I got one question.
Commissioner Dillon.
Over the years, why was it only 5 days a week? What was the reasoning for that? Was it staffing?
Yeah, about a year ago, we were having trouble with security staffing. We have to have a minimum. So we just didn't have enough to meet the minimum, so we had to shut down. And then once we got security up to speed, then our cage operation started to suffer. So we've just never been able to get to that point where we're comfortable of opening up.
Commissioner Manzano-Diaz.
Yes, thank you. The casino, is it non-smoking or smoking?
It's a combination of both.
Okay.
As part of the renovation, we plan to address that with a lot more control on the smoking area to ensure that there's a non-smoking option for our guests.
Okay. And with regard to your purchasing, locally you have construction and non-construction purchasing. And the purchasing of minority and women-owned business is non-construction only, or is it construction as well?
Both.
Both, okay. Do you know what the percentages are of the amount of non-construction and construction purchases that are minority and women-owned compared to the rest?
No, not currently available, but we can get that for you.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Commissioner Regan.
I had a couple questions. Do you plan to increase marketing at the resort to get more of your, what kind of plans would that entail?
Yeah, immediately. I think we're looking at taking the existing budget and increasing it by a minimum of $40,000 up until the renovations are done. Once the renovation is completed, which you're expecting prior to the Christmas holidays, then we plan to do a significant marketing campaign and connecting it more in line with the resort. So that's everything from radio and television ads to social media marketing to direct mail pieces, et cetera, et cetera.
Will there be actual advertising in the resort, though, to encourage the
Very much so. We've immediately started that. We've got digital advertising. We plan to be putting a compendium in the books of all of the resort rooms within the next 6 to 8 weeks. that will talk not only about the great amenity, but also address unattended minors in that as well.
You'd mentioned that 49% of the employees are RAMP certified. That seems to be low within the industry.
I'm going to defer. I think what I can speak from Nemacolin's perspective. So our associates, we have 1,200 associates approximately, 310 of which are RAMP certified. That means that all of our servers are RAMP certified. That means all of our butlers who are handing out champagne, complimentary champagne. That means anybody that our bus drivers are RAMP certified to ensure that nobody's coming on to the buses, et cetera, et cetera. I believe it on the gaming floor, anybody that touches or is around alcohol is there. But with the resort, it's diluted because the resort is such a collection of collections. We do our own wastewater treatment plants. We do our own freshwater treatment plants, et cetera, et cetera. So those percentages is a city-run property or something that's not as rural and has to depend as much would be significantly higher.
The decision-making is really governed department by department, and if the department has a nexus, it's all the employees in the department are RAMP certified. If the department doesn't have a nexus with alcohol or customers, there's no need for RAMP certification.
Gotcha. Okay. One more question from Mr. Matthew. I have to know the answer to this. You mentioned your personal favorite amenity is the Novathor system.
Novathor. It is. It's an infrared light treatment, sort of like a sunbed, but it doesn't have the UV, and it can relax you and energize you at the exact same time. I've never seen anything like it, so it's definitely good after a late Saturday night.
Thank you.
And Commissioner, just one question. First of all, congratulations on your 10-year anniversary.
Thank you.
And then my question is kind of tapping on what Commissioner Regan was mentioning. I mean, looking at your demographics and your guests' kind of annual household income, it seems like you guys are prime for casino patrons. What do you also see as like the disconnect? Or are you having more families come? Or like what's the disconnect from the patrons that are coming to the resort not coming to the casino?
It's a very good question. I think there's a variety of different factors that add into it. I think that number one, with us operating with third parties, there was a difference in service levels. So uniforms, for instance, simple things. So we're starting into 2 phases of uniforms. We'll get everybody into a uniform here in the next 2 weeks, and then a second set of uniforms when we rebrand. The second thing is servicing. When we started to look post-COVID, a lot of the amenities had been decreased due to staffing issues. So we didn't have cocktailers. Another thing that we've heard empirically in talking to the staff during the transition is premium liquor, for instance. So our guests want to come and drink Belvedere vodka. When they get over there, it's a well vodka. So how do we better? And that's where we really it's the small things in life.
Exactly.
But I think it's and looking at the entrance and the renderings as well. We're taking pieces of the resort, the grand entrance for the chateau, for instance, and making it more cohesive rather than a split. And that building is very rustic. It was originally opened in 2002 as a Cabela's-like store, so it was reconverted. And I think with some of these upgrades, it'll make our guests more comfortable. And I think the last thing, and probably one of the more important things, is that we do have a level of guests that want to be treated in a VIP manner. And the VIP room at the casino was never re-energized after COVID. And we're looking at reimagining the whole process, building it out a little bit differently, offering a food product, as John had said, which will be an upscale food product. Bringing in chefs, which we've already started to interview, of potentials that we can increase the quality of the food and the service levels. So I think all of those things combined led to why there may have been a disconnect in the past with the resort guests utilizing the casino at a higher clip.
No, I'm glad for that clarity because, I mean, the resort sounds fantastic. I've never been, but some of my fellow commissioners have. And just when you were going through the slides, the renovations for the casino seemed fairly light, so I was trying to see if those things have been considered in terms of, you know, you have lions and tigers and bears happening over on the resort side,
Right.
and then, you know, you want those same people to come over to the casino, so you
And-
want it to feel the same a bit.
One of the first things we're starting is also a 2-day orientation to what five-star, five-diamond service is, how to be anticipatory in our guests, how to be aware, guest aware is one of the big pieces we're playing with, and that starts immediately following the 4th of July holiday.
All right, thank you.
Question over here. Just a real quick question.
Yes.
On workforce, knowing that that area is very rural, having been out there a few times, not to Nemacolin, but knowing the area very well, where are there any specific groups that you plan on working with to try to enhance your ability to get the workforce? Because one of the challenges that I continue to hear, especially in the agricultural area, but just across business world in general, is workforce.
Yeah.
And again, knowing that the location is very rural, and just wondered, you know, how far and wide is your reach going to be to pull employees and then keep them? Because at the end of the day, you've got to keep employees.
Yeah, especially I think the keeping employees on, I'll address that first, is incredibly important, especially when we're putting in the training and development for five-star, five-diamond services. It's a burden. We'll spend a significant amount. I think there was $15,000 in training. I could see tripling that with the existing workforce. I think that since COVID, the industry itself has gone through a paradigm shift. There's still $500,000 associates in what was a 3 million employee base for restaurants alone that haven't come back. Nemacolin was able to weather the storm fairly well. We opened up, and within a year or so had what else considered full staffing. We never had to go to the point where we had to shut down rooms, as a lot of my peers in the industry had done, in the luxury industry, because they couldn't service the rooms. And I think there are a variety of different programs that we run through that allow us to do that. The biggest thing that we've got out there is, right now, if I were going to school again, I would definitely be in a hospitality program. There are so many opportunities that will open up in the next 15 to 20 years, and these classes of people coming through with some advanced are huge. So we work with universities throughout the United States. We work with University of Houston. We work with Michigan State. We work with Penn State. We work with community colleges, Westmoreland County Community College. We work with IUP, Indiana University of Pennsylvania. We work very closely with WVU, West Virginia University, who has a growing hospitality program. So we're seeing a lot of interns coming there. That's one of the things we work at. We also work with networking, both in the community. So attending Chamber of Commerce meetings, looking at small businesses so we can get the word out and start developing. I can't tell you how many people that I've met in those things. We start talking about how we do internal promotion, which is pretty steady in hospitality. And a couple of months later, we've got their son or daughter studying as a valet, for instance, and working up through the programs. I think that we work at job fairs, not only with the universities I've mentioned, but also within the community itself. And the casino's done a nice job of being able to take that and do it mobily. We do job fairs at the resort. We do job fairs sometimes in town, where we'll go to a Holiday Inn where it might be easier for people in the communities to be there. We work with the Fayette County Chamber of Commerce and women's networking events. And we also work with local unemployment offices, CareerLink, et cetera, et cetera. And I think all of those things, and we're very active in J1 visas, H-2B visas, and TN visas, which are which help with the property. So with all those relationships, we've been able to capitalize and actually do a fairly good job of staying away from not having to close down services. In fact, for the resort guests, we open up services 7 days a week for all our restaurants, where we didn't do that before because the demand was there and we were able to staff. And I think some of these expertise, we've got a recruiting division that has 6 people in it right now that are actively looking at recruiting. They're traveling, doing along those things. We're in the process of adding support specifically for the casino, so that's something we're looking at. and we'll continue those practices. And to John's point, we're all dedicated in getting to 7 days quickly, and the fastest we can do that, I think the better it'll be for all of us.
Ex officio, anything else? I don't want to prolong this, but I do have a question, Mr. Rodeo. You said Matthew Cole has some proprietary marketing packages that, what makes them different, and how, I'm assuming you're talking about using them for the casino,
Yes.
to market the casino.
Look, I think the industry over the last number of years has moved towards this type of model, and it's not something that the larger companies don't have the ability, but a one-off smaller company doesn't have the technology that allows you to target your offers specifically to each individual. Typically, casinos make offers to customers in segments of customers. So when you could speak to each individual who have different wants, different desires, different price points, it allows you to be more efficient with your marketing dollars. So it's a more targeted approach.
Okay, and with your guests' average stay being almost 3 nights, I gather you're going to try to work to make sure they know about the casino, so that if they're there for more than a night, they could, I don't know if you plan to just give tours of the casino at some point so that they know what it is and where it is, but.
Madam Chair, that's a big part of the educational process. So we actually start the educational process before the guest arrives on the property. We obviously start with the websites and social media marketing, but we also call the guests at least twice before they arrive to understand that we fill their docket with activities and whatnot. The casino will be part of those pre-calls. When the guests check in, all of our property is now buttled. So we have a butler service. We don't have a front desk anymore. We're getting rid of the front desk. So you take them directly from the car up into the room. That gives us another 10 minutes to be able to talk about amenities, activities, and not just marketing, but direct marketing and bringing those points up. So we've started that training already in orientations. And as we bring on this next group of people for the Grand Lodge, that will continue. And we've added for our resort guests a pretty significant, it's about a 45-minute educational piece on the casino itself as part of orientations. So yes, ma'am.
That's great. And what makes you think you can fill your empty hotel rooms with casino patrons? If they came there just for a day to gamble, what makes you think you can entice them to stay overnight?
I think what Tony was referring to is that our average booking window is between 30 and 45 days. So people making reservations, we don't have a lot of last-minute reservations. And as we look at the 4 or 5 days prior, are there regular players, or are there people that we can entice to come in to fill up what would normally be an expired or empty inventory? And how do we engage those a little bit better?
Okay. Oh, thank you. There's nothing else. Enforcement Counsel, do you have a presentation?
OEC does not have a presentation, but with the chair's permission, I would like to make a statement for the record.
Please proceed.
Thank you. The Office of Enforcement Counsel and Lady Luck Casino have entered into stipulations concerning Lady Luck Casino's application for renewal of its license, which have been provided to you. These stipulations are in addition to prior stipulations that were entered into the record at the public input hearing held on October 26th of 2022. The additional stipulations are as follows. The Pennsylvania State Police sent the OEC an email on May 31st, 2023 with a letter attached regarding statistics it obtained from the National Incident-Based Reporting System for the period of September 1st, 2022 through May 26th, 2023, addressing incidents at Lady Luck Casino. This letter is OEC Exhibit 1A. On May 22nd, 2023, the Bureau of Liquor Control Enforcement, or BLCE, issued a letter to OEC stating that there have been no enforcement actions taken by the BCLE against Lady Luck since September 7th, 2022. This letter is OEC Exhibit 2A. The Pennsylvania Department of Revenue provided 3 statements of accounts to OEC regarding Woodlands Fayette, LLC, LLN PA, LLC, and Nemacolin Woodlands, Inc. All are current and in good standing with the Pennsylvania Department of Revenue. The letters are marked as OEC Exhibits 4A1, 4B1, and 4C1 respectively, and OEC would ask that Exhibits 4A1, 4B1, and 4C1 be kept confidential. Exhibits 6A and 7A are a compliance conference memorandum and warning letters respectively that were issued since the public input hearing on October 26th, 2022. The exhibits are accessible through an access link provided to the parties. The exhibits supplement Exhibits 6 and 7, which were previously entered into the record on October 26th, 2022 during the public input hearing. OEC conducted one compliance conference with Lady Luck since the time of the public input hearing. In that instance, Lady Luck took corrective measures to remedy the concerns of OEC. The compliance conference memorandum regarding the compliance conference is OEC Exhibit 6A and is accessible through the access link. OEC would ask that OEC Exhibit 6A be kept confidential. OEC has issued Lady Luck 3 warning letters since the time of the public input hearing for various violations of the Act and the regulations promulgated thereunder. Lady Luck has appropriately responded to each warning letter issued by OEC in a timely manner. Copies of the letter and Lady Luck's responses are OEC Exhibit 7A and are accessible through the access link. OEC would ask that OEC Exhibit 7A be kept confidential. In addition, OEC Exhibit 10 is the stipulations agreement executed by the parties on June 15th and 16th of 2023. OEC requests that the exhibits that I just described be admitted into the record, with the additional request that OEC Exhibits 4A1, 4B1, 4C1, 6A, and 7A be kept confidential. OEC would also like to note for the record that it has submitted a financial background investigation report to the board, and the Bureau of Licensing has submitted the renewal suitability report to the board, which encompasses reports from all of the necessary offices and bureaus within the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board. OEC is available for any questions that the board may have regarding the information provided at this time.
Lady Luck, do you have any questions for the Enforcement Council?
We do not.
And this was a stipulation, so you have no objections as to any of it?
If need be, I can, no objections.
Any questions or comments from the board for Enforcement Council? No? Lady Luck, is there anything else you'd like to add at this point in time?
Not at all.
I think, may I just add one thing? I think, thank you for the consideration, and I would like to offer at any time a tour of the property to better understand what Nemacolin is to the board, to the ex officios. We appreciate the opportunity of being able to present in front of you.
Oh, thank you. Actually, it was an excellent presentation. Trey, you're very good.
Thank you.
That concludes this proceeding. This matter will be put before the board for a vote today during the Bureau of Licensing portion of the agenda. Thank you. Now we will hear from Harrah's Philadelphia Casino and Racetrack and the Office of Enforcement Council on their petition to modify the gaming floor. Do you need a break? While we're transitioning, we're going to take a 5-minute break. That's good. She thinks like a gallon of water. Okay, we're back on the record. We have a slight change in the agenda. We're going to take one consent agreement out of order, and I would ask Enforcement Counsel to proceed.
RE Chief Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a consent agreement between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and licensed fantasy contest operator Sports Hub PA LLC. The matter will be presented by Senior Enforcement Counsel John Crow. Representatives for the licensed entity are present, and at this time I would request that those individuals please introduce themselves for the record, and all non-attorney witnesses please stand and be sworn.
Thank you. My name is Michael Trainer. I'm counsel from Blank Rome for SHGN Acquisition Corp. and Sports Hub PA LLC. And at front, I would like to thank everyone for their consideration and cooperation for moving this up the agenda. It is greatly appreciated considering the travel issues that have arisen today. So thank you very much to all involved for your courtesy. I'll introduce Mr. Prithian, please.
Hello, my name is Rob Fithian, CEO of Sports Hub Games Network and SharpLink.
And would you spell your name?
Sure, it's Pythian.
Thank you.
Wait, does he need to be sworn?
Yes, please. You can be sworn.
Do I stand or?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Stand.
You got it.
Sorry.
You can please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Go with it, bro.
John Crow, CROHE, for the Office of Enforcement Counsel. This consent agreement results from an unapproved change of control affecting Sports Hub PA LLC. On September 23rd, 2022, the Board's Bureau of Licensing received notification from Sports Hub that a change of control was being negotiated with SHGN Acquisition Corp. The Bureau of Licensing determined that SHGN was required to be licensed as an affiliate of Sports Hub as a result of this transaction. On October 27, 2022, the Bureau of Licensing held a conference to inform the involved entities of the proper procedure for seeking board approval for this transaction, including the filing of a petition for approval and the filing of an application for SHGN. On December 22, 2022, Sports Hub completed its change of control prior to petitioning the board for approval and prior to filing the application for SHGN. On January 13, 2023, Sports Hub and SHGN filed a joint petition seeking board approval for the previously completed change of control. Also, on January 13th, SHGN submitted an application to the board for an affiliate license. The Office of Enforcement Counsel and Sports Hub respectfully request that the board approve the consent agreement and stipulations of settlement, which require Sports Hub to pay a civil penalty of $13,000, as well as a $2,500 administrative fee for costs incurred by board staff in connection with investigations into this matter.
Sports Hub, would you like to be heard?
Just very briefly, we'd just like to thank Office of Enforcement Counsel, Bureau of Licensing, and everyone involved in the procedure to get us to this point today. We realized it was a serious issue that was brought to before the board. We appreciate everyone's cooperation, and we're very pleased with the end result. But obviously, we're here to answer any questions to the extent there are any.
Any questions or comments from the board? I just want to know how this happened. They were made aware that they needed to file this, and they did not.
Well, and I can have Rob speak to this for a moment too, but as in the papers, it was candidly just a misunderstanding on our client's part as to what was required. Our firm was brought in very shortly after the issue was brought to our attention, and then we moved as quick as possible to get the appropriate petition filed. So it was candidly a misunderstanding, and they've hired new counsel as a result, and are redoubling efforts, to say the least, to make sure that such a misunderstanding does not occur again. But to the extent Rob has any additional commentary.
Yeah, so ignorance is no excuse of the law. We had counsel that didn't understand, that was not from Pennsylvania, so I hired Michael.
Thank you.
Good move on your part.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board approve the consent agreement between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and Sports Hub PA LLC as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Thank you so very much for your cooperation and courtesy. Again, thank you.
Our pleasure. Chester Harris, you can come forward now.
Thank you to Harris.
Well, thank you for understanding being bumped a little bit. And I would ask if there are any non-attorneys who will be presenting evidence today, that they please stand to be sworn in by the court reporter.
I do.
Just would like to remind everybody before you speak to please state and spell your name for the court reporter. So, Harris, you may begin. And I know it's Harris, Philadelphia. I said Chester Harris. I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's all good.
It's both. Thank you, Chair Smiler, members of the commission, and ex officio members. Thank you for having us here today. My name is Steve Schreier, and I am with the law firm of Blank Rome, and I'm here on behalf of Chester Downs Casino, which is known as Chester Downs Marina LLC and does business as Harrah's Philadelphia Casino and Racetrack. With me today, who was just sworn in, is Zara Alayan. She is the Senior Vice President and General Manager of Harrah's Philadelphia. And also here with us today in the room, but not at the table with us, is Nick Capriati, who's the Vice President of Finance, Matthew Connor, Vice President of Security and Facilities at the property, and Bessie Sacco, who's Vice President and General Counsel of Regional Operations for Caesars Entertainment. We're here today seeking the board's approval of an amended petition for Harrah's Philadelphia to modify its gaming floor and reduce the number of slot machines and table games under the board's regulations. Harrah's initially filed the petition with this board on March 8th, 2023. An amended petition was filed on April 24th, 2023. Office of Enforcement Counsel filed its answer in a new matter on May 24th, 2023, and Harrah's answered that new matter on May 30th, 2023. In essence, Harrah's is here today seeking this modification and reduction in games and its gaming floor because of a decrease in utilization. But more importantly, it's an effort to create a more vibrant and engaging gaming floor experience for its patrons. They did not take this lightly. They studied the information and the data that they had, and they've determined that these changes will not reduce any of the revenues of the casino and will not negatively impact any of the taxes coming to the Commonwealth. The changes are not anticipated to reduce any of the staffing. Zara, sitting next to me, will provide you with a little more detail on this in a moment. Throughout this process, we've worked closely with your financial investigations unit, and we've worked with Office of Enforcement Counsel. They've conducted a very thorough review of the impacts of this modification, and we appreciate their hard work and consideration. I would note that there is no objection from Office of Enforcement Counsel to the modifications that have been proposed by Harrah's Philly in this petition. I would also note that Harrah's Philadelphia is a Category 1 harness racing facility as well, and the Horsemen, the Pennsylvania Harness Horsemen's Association, has reviewed this situation and has also filed a letter supporting the petition, which was submitted to the board. I'll now turn it over to Zara, the Senior Vice President and General Manager of Harrah's, and I would just ask Zara if you could provide the board with a brief summary of your background.
Absolutely. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Zara Alayan, Z-A-R-A-A-L-A-Y-A-N. I'm happy to be here. So a little bit of background. I've been with the gaming industry for 15 years, all 15 years with Caesars Entertainment. I actually just celebrated 15 years in June. So I started with Caesars right after grad school as an analyst in Atlantic City, spent a few years in Atlantic City for 6 years, and then came actually to Harrah's Philadelphia as head of finance, director of finance in end of 2014. A year later, got promoted to Vice President of Finance and stayed there for 6 years. In 2021, beginning of 2021, got a call to go back to Atlantic City as head of finance at one of our properties, Tropicana Atlantic City. So stayed there a little less than 2 years and got another call to come back to Harrah's, Philadelphia. Was really happy to do. Knew all the employees, right? Very excited to go back as a senior vice president and general manager and run the property. So again, as I said, excited to be here, and we just prepared a presentation to go over our seeking reduction of the gaming floor.
Thank you. So we do have a presentation. Hopefully you've all been able to take a look at it and you have a copy of it in front of you. I would ask Zara if you could kindly just provide a little more insight into the reasons and what we'll be doing at the property.
Yep. Go to the first slide. It's a lot of words, but so we're seeking approval reduction of the gaming floor, so which includes slot machine reductions, 145 games, reduction of square footage of the gaming floor, as well as a reduction in table game counts. So we're asking for, as I said, 145 reduction in slot units. We'll go from 1672 current slot count to 1,527 units. We're proposing our gaming floor reduction to go down from a little over 104,000 square feet to 86,661 square feet gaming floor, and also reducing table games from 71 to 66. This new layout will also include remodeling and moving our sports book, which will come a little bit closer to the center of the casino floor and will be more visible and will be better experience for our customers. We're planning to complete our reduction within 3 months, but the goal is really to open by the NFL season, which will be the first week of September, to completely complete the project and open our permanent sports book by the first week of the September. Going to the next slide, the 145 unit reduction will bring us to 1,527 units for the casino. This 145 units are oldest and the least profitable units, and their average age is over 12 years old. And after reconfiguration, our smoking area will be a little over 48% of the floor. We don't believe that this reduction will impact our revenues or the tax revenues for the Commonwealth. Moving to the next slide. As you can see from these charts, we have been experiencing revenue declines since we opened, right? We opened in 2007. We were one of the 2 casinos in our area, and now we're one of 5 casinos. So obviously everything impacts our revenue. So this request to reduce our mainly gaming floor and also some of the units is really to right-size our operation to our current revenues and the volumes that we're receiving. So looking at the supply and occupancy, we've done some research, right? We looked at the last 12 months of our occupancy. So the highest occupancy day was March 26, and the highest occupancy hour was 7 p.m., which were at 51.6% occupancy for the floor. And at that time, we still had 813 units available. After reduction, if we see that kind of volume, which we really haven't seen that kind of occupancy since that day, we would have 668 units available. Still plenty of units available after the reduction. And the same thing with the banking tables. 53 banking tables will comfortably and adequately handle the peak occupancy periods for our table volumes. We haven't really opened more than 42 games. If you look at the last 12 months, and most Saturdays we really run around 30, 35 games on average. So as I said, our focus is to continue to create the overall comfortable environment for our customers, and also with that create more energetic and fun environment, right? Right now our floor is too big. And this is what we're trying to do here, reduce around 18,000 square feet from the back, which will create more energy on the floor and will be a really great environment for our customers. Going into next slide, I mean, as you can see from here, we continue to reinvest in our customers. We continue to reinvest in getting new slot machines, and we continue to reinvest in our floor. With this reconfiguration, we'll be spending over $1 million to move the sports book and reconfigure the floor. We've spent over $1.5 million in the last 2 years for the to get new slot machines, and also we're spending close to $26 million every year on the promotional play, and close to $2 million for the lease games that we're getting every year. So the next two slides are showing our current space and how the space will look in the future. So this is the current space. If you look at between 5 and 2, we have a pit there that will actually go away. That's part of the some of the reduction with tables. And then when the 1 is that all space behind the 5, which will be the wall, will not be a gaming space anymore. So this is what it will look in the future. The sports book will move where currently the 1 is, and the behind the wall, behind the red line, will be really non-gaming space. So with that, we really, I would like to thank you for your time, and we would like to request an approval of our petition. And also, if you have any questions, we'll be glad to answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Enforcement Counsel, do you have any questions?
I do. Good morning, Chair Smiler and members of the board. Dustin Miller on behalf of the Office of Enforcement Counsel, MILLER. Can you turn to page 9 of the presentation? Put that one back up on the screen. Yeah, there you go. Besides the movement and reduction of slot machines and table games, are any non-gaming amenities being closed in that blue area that's going to be closed off?
No, so we're moving the sports book, the block entertainment, we will still be utilizing that for the events.
Although slot machines and table games are being removed as part of this plan, will the reduction in the size of the gaming floor have an impact on patron comfort?
No, it should not. Actually, will create more energetic environment for the customers.
Does Harrah's have any plans for that blue area that will be closed off as part of this plan? Is it storage or?
Yeah, we're exploring opportunities. The area that was the sports book that's close to the block entertainment will act as a pre-function for the event. But the other area, we're exploring opportunities what we can do with this space, but we currently don't have anything.
I would suggest maybe you consider a Novathor spa therapy center after what I just
that
heard.
Sounded very good.
Yeah. Just keep that in mind. It's an idea.
I know in your testimony you said that there would be no reduction in the current staff. Will there be any reduction in work hours for the current staff?
No, should not be.
Okay. And just looking at the diagram, like, how will you access the block entertainment venue? Was there like a hallway through that blue space?
Yeah, so right next to the next to the sports book, there'll be doors. So we'll have 2 sets of doors on each side, and then when we have events, we'll just open the doors, and obviously when there's nothing going on, we'll keep the doors closed.
Okay. And the reconfigured gaming floor, is there going to be any increase in the smoking area due to this change?
I think we're moving from 47.5% to 48.4%, so
slight increase.
Slight increase, yes.
Will the modification to the gaming floor leave any market demand unmet?
I don't believe so.
As Harrah's plan modification takes Harrah's slot count near the 1,500 minimum for a Category 1 facility, does Harrah's have any concerns that it will be able to make 1,500 machines available at all times?
We're now planning to go under 1,500, so.
And finally, has the proliferation of skill slot machines impacted Harrah's Philadelphia slot machine business?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question, right? I would echo what Nemacolin said. Any addition supply, and obviously you saw from our charts, right? Any addition supply definitely impacts us, but we don't have any analysis showing that because we just don't know how many are out there. But yeah, definitely.
I don't have any further questions.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, Office of Enforcement Counsel, do you have a presentation?
I don't have a presentation. I have a short statement. The Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement's Financial Investigations has thoroughly investigated this matter, and the Office of Enforcement Counsel does not have an objection to Harrah's petition to modify its gaming floor. The Office of Enforcement Counsel does ask that the board implement the conditions outlined in its answer to Harrah's petition.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Enforcement Counsel from the board? Any questions or comments from Harrah's for Enforcement Counsel?
No, we just want to thank everyone for this opportunity.
I would just add that one of the proposed conditions that has been offered by Enforcement Counsel involved notification to the Bureau of Casino Operations if there was any event that might have caused the number of slot machines to reduce below 1,500 units. And certainly that would be a concern, and sometimes these things might happen if there's some kind of power outage or something along those lines. But the way that condition was worded, we have just asked for a slight change to it to make that notification within 1 hour of when management learns of the fact that reduction has happened to that point. And the reason that we just thought we pointed that out internally was that sometimes GTEC will know that a machine is down in the middle of the night, but we may not know that from the management's perspective right away. We just wanted to make sure we were, once management knows that they have 1 hour to notify the Bureau. Just clarifies it slightly. I don't know if OEC has any concerns about that, but
I'll just say on behalf of OEC that, based upon Section 1207, paragraph 19 of the Act and 1210A2 of the Act, we view that 1,500 as a hard floor, and falling below that we would view as a serious matter. But we'll leave it up to the discretion of the board to word that condition.
Okay. Right. Thank you.
Just one housekeeping matter to introduce the slide presentation as a number one in evidence for us. Thank you.
Any objection?
No objection.
Okay. If there's nothing else, thank you very much. That concludes this proceeding. This matter will be put before the board for a vote today during the Office of Chief Counsel's portion of the agenda.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will now hear from Human Resources Director, Danette Bixler-George.
Danette Bixler-George, DANETTEBIXLER-George, GEORGE. Good morning, Chair, board members. The Office of Human Resources has one motion today for your consideration relative to the hiring of 2 individuals. Both individuals have completed the interview process, drug screening, and background investigation. First, we have Michael Jorda, who has been selected as a casino compliance representative at Mohegan, Pennsylvania Casino, and is recommended for hire by the Bureau of Casino Compliance Management. Next, we have Stuart Grant, who has been selected as an investigator in the Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement Southeast Regional Office and is recommended for hire by Paul Morrow, Director of Investigations and Enforcement. Unless you have any questions, I ask that the board consider a motion to approve the hiring actions as indicated.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board approve the applicants for hire as proposed by the Human Resources Director.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Danette. We will now hear from the Office of Chief Counsel.
Not sure if it's morning or afternoon, but.
Still morning.
All right, good morning. Our first agenda item relates to local law enforcement grants, which Senior Counsel Denise Miller-Schutte will present.
Good morning. I have 2 grants to present to you today. The first is...
Would you state your name and spell it for the
I'm
court
sorry.
reporter?
Denise Miller-Schutte. It's Miller-T as in Tom, S as in Sam, H-U, D as in dog, Y. The first grant that I have for you is Cumberland County District Attorney's Office, and they're requesting $145,421 to carry out the purposes of the local law enforcement program, namely to investigate and enforce laws related to unlawful gaming. If this is awarded, this would be this office's 4th grant.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board approve the local law enforcement grant application as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Dillon seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
The second grant that I have to present to you today is Monroe County District Attorney's Office. Monroe County's, the District Attorney's Office is requesting $250,000 to carry out the purposes of the local law enforcement grant to include investigation and enforcement of unlawful gaming. This would be their third grant if awarded.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dillon moves that the board approve the local law enforcement grant application as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Hickernell seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you, Denise.
Next before the board is a temporary regulation, which Assistant Chief Counsel Robert Wood will present.
Good morning. I think I'm just beating the clock on that one. Madam Chair, members of the board, Assistant Chief Counsel Robert Wood, W-O-O-D. Today I have one item for your consideration, that being temporary reg package 125-244. This package is comprised of Super Sickbo, a variation of Sickbo, Top Card, a variation of Casino War, and additionally it adds under the MIDI and Mini Baccarat those offerings of Rising Phoenix Baccarat, Golden Talons, and Harmony Progressive, which were adopted by the board in February relative to Baccarat. Prior to this morning's meeting, a copy of these regulations were provided to the board. If the board has any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. Otherwise, I'd request a motion to approve and adopt temporary reg package 125-244.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Hickernell moves that the board adopt temporary regulation number 125-244 regarding table game side wagers and variations as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Manzano-Diaz, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Next before the board are 5 petitions. The first two petitions were already in some way, shape, or form heard by the board today. The remaining petitions will be decided on the documentary record by agreement of the parties. The board has, in advance of this meeting, been provided with all of the documents filed of record. The first petition before the board today is Chester Dana Marina, LLC, doing business as Harrah's Philadelphia Casino and Racetracks, request to modify its gaming floor. The board just heard from Harrah's at their public hearing. Harrah's is requesting that they be allowed to reduce the number of slot machines on its gaming floor by 152. They also are requesting to remove 9 tables from their gaming floor and reduce the gaming floor space from 104,561 square feet to 86,661 square feet. After review by the Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement's Financial Investigations Unit, the Office of Enforcement Counsel does not object to the relief requested, but subjects it to a series of standard conditions which were outlined in OEC's answer, as well as the condition Mr. Schreier and Mr. Miller spoke of. There is also a request by Harrah's that some of the sensitive information pertaining to this matter be maintained as confidential. The Office of Chief Counsel has reviewed the issue on the one condition relative to the notice to the board within 1 hour of management. And it is our recommendation to the board that the board accept that modification and allow notice to occur within 1 hour of management's notice.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Manzano-Diaz moves that the board grant Chester Downs and Marina, LLC, doing business as Harrah's Philadelphia Casino and Racetracks, petition to modify the gaming floor as described by the Office of Chief Counsel. I further move that the parties' requests for confidentiality be given and also agree to the 1 hour notification.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Next before the board is a joint petition from SHGN Acquisition Corp. And Sports Hub PA LLC requesting approval of a change of control that has already occurred. This was the subject of the consent agreement heard earlier today by the board. I won't belabor the facts since you've already heard them. What I will tell you is that after this came to light, on October 22nd, 2022, the parties completed this transaction without filing the petition requesting board approval for the change of control as previously advised by the Bureau of Licensing. Upon learning of this merger transaction, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed for an emergency suspension of Sport Hub PA's fantasy contest operator license. An order was issued by the executive director directing that Sports Hub PA could continue operations, but that all Pennsylvania fantasy contest adjusted revenue minus taxes owed to the Commonwealth be deposited into an escrow account until all parties were appropriately licensed by the board and a change of control petition was approved by the board, and that money remains in escrow at this point. Thereafter, as the board is aware, the parties filed their petition with the board requesting retroactive approval of the change of control. The Office of Enforcement Counsel answered the petition, not objecting to the requested relief upon full licensure of all required parties. OEC also negotiated the consent agreement that the board heard earlier today. At this time, Sports Hub PA LLC's nunc-pro-tunc change in control petition is ripe for a board vote. In addition to the petition, there's a request before the board that sensitive information in the pleadings be maintained as confidential, and this matter is now ready for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board grant SHGN Acquisition Corp. and Sports Hub PA LLC joint verified petition nunc-pro-tunc for approval of change of control as described by the Office of Chief Counsel. I further move that the parties' request for confidentiality be granted.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
The next petition before the board today is Golden Nugget Online Gaming LLC's request for 2 interactive gaming certificates after previously being granted qualified gaming entity status by the board, that occurring in March of 2021. Specifically, Golden Nugget Online Gaming now seeks a certificate to operate online slot machines and a separate certificate to operate online table games. The cost of each of these certificates is $4 million. The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection to Golden Nugget Online Gaming's request for interactive gaming certificates, subject to the conditions outlined in their answer, including that the certificates not be issued until all appropriate licenses are issued, which should occur in the coming month or two, one of the next couple of board meetings, and this matter is now ready for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Regan moves that the board grant Golden Nugget Online Gaming LLC's petition for issuance of gaming certificates as described by the Office of Chief Counsel. I further move that the parties' request for confidentiality be granted.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes.
Next before the board is Elliot Tucker's petition for early reapplication for a gaming level 2 employee occupation permit. By way of background, Mr. Tucker held a gaming permit and worked as a table games dealer at Rivers Casino, Philadelphia. In May of 2018, Mr. Tucker filed an application for a gaming level 2 employee occupation permit to work as a dual rate table game supervisor at that same casino. The Office of Enforcement Counsel issued a notice recommending denial of Mr. Tucker's application for a G2 permit for failing to provide all of the necessary documentation needed to process his application. Consequently, his G2 permit was denied by the board in June of 2019. Additionally, Mr. Tucker's gaming permit was suspended by the board in December of 2021 after he failed to satisfy a special condition on his license. He has since complied with that special condition, and the suspension of his gaming permit has been lifted by the board. Mr. Tucker has now resolved all issues and provided the necessary paperwork to complete a G2 permit application, and he's been offered a supervisory position by Stadium Live Casino in Philadelphia. The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection to Mr. Tucker's request to resubmit a gaming level 2 employee permit application fully completed, which will be brought before the board upon completion of a complete background investigation, and this matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board grant Elliot Tucker's petition for early reapplication of his gaming employee level 2 occupation permit as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Dillon seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
The final petition before the board today is TC's request to be removed from the self-exclusion list. On September 24th, 2012, an individual with the initials TC placed herself on the self-exclusion list and chose the lifetime self-exclusion option. In July of 2021, TC filed a request for removal from the list. A hearing on the matter was held, and subsequently the board denied the request as 10 years had not elapsed from the date she had placed herself on the self-exclusion list. In November of 2022, TC again filed for removal from the self-exclusion list. The Office of Enforcement Counsel originally objected to her request, in part for failing to provide the required problem gambling assessment verification form. Thereafter, TC submitted a problem gambling assessment verification form signed by a certified assessment provider confirming that TC had an evaluation performed and that no problem gambling treatment was recommended. Subsequently, OEC amended its answer stating that it had no objection to TC's petition, and this matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dillon moves that the board grant TC's petition as described by the Office of Chief Counsel and that TC be removed from the self-exclusion list.
Commissioner Hickernell seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Next, presenting withdrawals and reports and recommendations is Deputy Chief Counsel Chad Zimmerman.
Good morning, Commissioners. Chad Zimmerman, Z-I-M-M-E-R-M-A-N-N. The next matter before the board today pertains to several unopposed petitions to withdraw applications or surrender the credentials of the following individuals or entities: AP Gaming Vote Co. LLC, Lee Fenton, Andrew Holmes, Jesse Chemtob, Kurt Hansen, Elena Chambers, Christian Stuslov, Michael Cawley, Tanya Horgan, Michael LaSalle, Eric Foote, Neil Dealey, Alexander Gersh, and Thomas Munley. The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection to any of these withdrawals or surrenders. As a result, if the board were to grant the request, it would be doing so without prejudice to the requester, and these matters are all now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Hickernell moves that the board issue orders to approve the withdrawals and surrenders as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Manzano Diaz, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Next before the board's consideration are 9 reports and recommendations received from the Office of Hearings and Appeals. These reports and recommendations, along with the evidentiary record for each hearing, have been provided to the board in advance of this meeting. Additionally, the persons involved have each been notified that the board would be considering their matter today, and that they each have the ability to come forward and briefly address the board. If any of the persons who are the subject of one of these reports and recommendations would like to address the board, I would ask them to come forward when their matter is called. Thomas Fiore is the first report and recommendation before the board today. Mr. Fiore previously worked as a purchasing manager at Rivers Casino Pittsburgh. On December 1st, 2022, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a complaint for revocation, alleging that Mr. Fiore had been sending threatening text message about a previous supervisor to a former coworker at Rivers. A hearing was held on March 15th, 2023. Mr. Fiore appeared but chose not to testify on his own behalf. Testimony and evidence presented by OEC showed that a former coworker had received text messages from Mr. Fiore threatening his former supervisor after he had been terminated from his employment with the casino. The witness testified that Mr. Fiore talked about his termination frequently and believed that his former supervisor had it out for him and singled him out. OEC further provided testimony from a supervisor for the Bureau of Casino Compliance who worked at Rivers in regards to the event that led to Mr. Fiore's termination. Specifically, he had been terminated for inappropriate comments and behaviors towards Rivers team members. Additionally, he was criminally charged with terroristic threats and harassment based on the text messages that had been sent to the former coworker. Those charges were later dismissed, and he had pleaded guilty to 1 count of disorderly conduct. Following the hearing, a report and recommendation was issued recommending that the board deny OEC's complaint for revocation, concluding that OEC had failed to provide a basis for such a revocation. OEC then filed exceptions to that report and recommendation, citing issues they had with the recommendation. Mr. Fiore then filed a response to the OEC's exceptions discussing his charges, the termination, and disputing the coworker's testimony. This matter is now ready for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Manzano-Diaz moves that the board reject the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and that the Office of Enforcement Counsel's complaint for revocation be granted.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Diane Taylor is the next report and recommendation before the board today. Ms. Taylor worked as a food and beverage supervisor at Rivers Casino, Philadelphia. On December 5th, 2022, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a complaint to revoke Ms. Taylor's gaming employee occupation permit, alleging that while working, she accepted a $100 tip from a patron in violation of board regulations and her signed statement of conditions. A hearing in this matter was held on March 7th, 2023. OEC appeared offering testimony, documentary, and surveillance evidence. Ms. Taylor appeared and testified on her own behalf. Testimony and evidence presented to the hearing showed on October 25th, 2022, while Ms. Taylor was working at the bar at the casino sportsbook as a supervisor, a patron handed her his player's card along with a $100 bill, and that patron was served beverages. Surveillance shows that the $100 cash was never placed in the cash register. Ms. Taylor was terminated for her actions. Ms. Taylor testified at the hearing that she gave the player's card to the bartender so that he could ring up the drinks that were being served to the patron. She further testified that this particular patron had given her gifts in the past and that she believed the $100 to be a tip, as he had also provided his player's card to be swiped for the drinks. Ms. Taylor also stated that she had been in her position as a food and beverage supervisor for approximately 3 months and was not aware of the policy regarding supervisors from receiving tips. Based upon the evidence received, the report and recommendation issued in this matter recommends that OEC's complaint to revoke Ms. Taylor's permit be denied, as OEC failed to meet its burden regarding revocation of the permit. This matter is now ready for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board reject the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and that the Office of Enforcement Counsel's complaint to revoke Diane Taylor's gaming employee occupation permit be denied, but further move that her permit be suspended for a period of 1 year retroactive of October 28th, 2022.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Angelino Abraham is the next matter before the board today. On September 23rd, 2022, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a petition to place Angelino Abraham on the involuntary exclusion list. Mr. Abraham requested a hearing, which was held on March 2nd, 2023. Mr. Abraham appeared and testified on his own behalf. OEC appeared providing testimony, documentary, and surveillance evidence. Evidence provided at the hearing shows that on February 11th, 2022, while patronizing Hollywood Casino at the Meadows, Mr. Abraham slapped another individual who was later determined to be his wife. Casino security responded to the incident and attempted to subdue Mr. Abraham. He then shoved the security officer out of the way and punched his wife. Mr. Abraham was arrested, criminally charged, and permanently evicted from the casino. Mr. Abraham testified that this incident happened due to a mental health crisis he was suffering from at the time, that the charges that were filed against him were ultimately dropped and expunged. Mr. Abraham's wife also testified at the hearing on his behalf, stating that he had been going through an episode and was not taking medication at the time of the incident, and confirmed that the criminal charges had been dismissed. Additionally, Mr. Abraham provided a letter from his doctor regarding his medical diagnoses. Subsequent to the hearing, a report and recommendation was issued recommending that Mr. Abraham be placed on the board's involuntary exclusion list. Thereafter, Mr. Abraham filed exceptions reiterating what he had been going through regarding his mental health at the time. This matter is now ready for the board's consideration.
Mr. Abraham,
Yes.
would you stand, be sworn by the court reporter?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Would you state and spell your name for the court reporter, please?
Angelino Abraham, Angelino, last name Abraham, Abraham.
Okay. Would you like to make a statement or address the board?
Yes, I would like to say that I was going through mental health crisis during that time because I was not taking the medication. And I just hope that I will not be put on exclusion list. That's all I would like to say.
Any questions or comments from the board for Mr. Abraham? No? Thank you, Mr. Abraham. Okay, if there are no further questions or comments, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and that Angelino Abraham be placed on the involuntary exclusion list.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted. Thank you, Mr. Abraham.
Next is a report and recommendation for Keneal Jones. On July 13, 2022, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a petition to place Keneal Jones on the involuntary exclusion list. A hearing in this matter was held on February 23, 2023. Counsel for OEC appeared providing testimonial, documentary, and surveillance evidence. Although receiving proper notice, Mr. Jones failed to appear for the hearing and it was held in his absence. Evidence presented at the hearing showed that on November 1, 2021, Mr. Jones left a young child alone in his vehicle, entering Mohegan Sun Pocono, and stood in line at a sports betting kiosk. Mr. Jones was in line for approximately 22 minutes when he was ultimately approached by a security officer and escorted back to the vehicle. A female arrived, took the child, and Mr. Jones was permitted to leave on his own. The child was left alone for approximately 28 minutes. No criminal charges were filed against him. He was, however, permanently evicted from the casino, an eviction that he had violated on 2 occasions. Following a hearing, a report and recommendation was issued recommending that Mr. Jones be placed on the board's involuntary exclusion list, and this matter is now ready for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and that Keneal Jones be placed on the involuntary exclusion list.
Commissioner Dillon seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
The next 2 reports and recommendations pertain to Andrea Langenbach and Christian Langenbach. Both of these matters contain the same set of facts, and so I will briefly summarize the matters for the board and ask for 2 separate motions. On April 20th, 2022, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed petitions seeking to place Andrea Langenbach and Christian Langenbach on the board's involuntary exclusion list after being notified that the parties had left their 14-month-old child alone in a vehicle at Harris, Philadelphia. Both Mr. and Mrs. Langenbach requested hearings, and after several continuances, Mr. Langenbach's hearing was held March 14, 2023, and Ms. Langenbach's hearing was held on March 29, 2023. Neither Mr. Langenbach nor Ms. Langenbach appeared at their hearings, and they were held in their absence. OEC appeared at both hearings. Testimony and evidence presented by OEC showed that Mr. Langenbach was a licensed table games dealer at Harris, Philadelphia. Ms. Langenbach was attending Harris Dealer Training Academy, but had not yet been credentialed by the board. On July 5, 2021, the couple arrived at Harris and parked in the garage. Their 14-month-old son was with them at the time. The pair entered the casino, and then shortly thereafter, a security officer found the unattended child who had been left alone for approximately 10 minutes. Mr. Langenbach returned to the vehicle and was met by the Pennsylvania State Police. The couple was originally suspended by Harris and eventually issued permanent evictions from the casino. No criminal charges were filed against the couple. Subsequently, on April 3rd and April 6th, respectively, the report and recommendation was issued that Christian Langenbach and Andrea Langenbach be placed on the board's involuntary exclusion list, and these matters are now ready for the board's consideration, and I would first request a motion on Andrea Langenbach's report and recommendation.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dillon moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and that Andrea Lagenbach be placed on the involuntary exclusion list.
Commissioner Hickernell seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
And I would further request a motion on Christian Langenbach's report and recommendation.
May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Hickernell moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and that Christian Langenbach be placed on the involuntary exclusion list.
Commissioner Manzano Diaz, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
The next report and recommendation before the board stems from a request for removal from the board's voluntary interactive gaming self-exclusion list by an individual with the initials AF. The Office of Enforcement Counsel filed an answer objecting to this request. A hearing in this matter was held on March 29, 2023. OEC appeared and presented testimonial and documentary evidence. AF failed to appear at the hearing, and it was held in his absence. Pursuant to the uncontested findings of fact in the report and recommendation issued in this matter, on October 19, 2020, AF submitted a request for the board's website to be placed on the interactive gaming self-exclusion list for a period of 5 years. On December 15, 2022, AF filed the instant petition stating that he was not aware that placing himself on the iGaming self-exclusion list would also potentially prevent him from entering brick-and-mortar casinos. OEC presented evidence showing that AF properly filled out all of the exclusion forms and signed the acknowledgments choosing his exclusion period, acknowledging that although he was excluding from iGaming, that he may be prohibited from other forms of gaming by gaming companies in Pennsylvania and other jurisdictions, and that it was his responsibility to learn the policies of each licensee and operator. After hearing the evidence presented, a report and recommendation was issued recommending AF's request for early removal from the involuntary gaming self-exclusion list be denied, and this matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Manzano Diaz moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and that AF remain on the iGaming self-exclusion list.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes.
The next report and recommendation before the board today stems from a request for removal from the self-exclusion list. On June 11, 2021, an individual with the initials NJ electronically submitted a request to be placed on the board's involuntary exclusion or self-exclusion list for a period of 5 years. In June 2022, NJ filed a petition requesting early removal from the list, alleging that she wanted to place herself on the list for a 1-year period, but that her mother, who submitted the paperwork for her, enrolled her for a 5-year exclusion period without her knowledge. OEC filed an answer objecting to the request, and a hearing was held, and the board issued an order in October 2022 denying NJ's request for removal. In November 2022, NJ filed another request for removal from the self-exclusion list, alleging that her mother was willing to testify that she placed NJ on the list without her consent. A hearing was held in this matter on January 10, 2023. NJ failed to appear and the hearing was held in her absence. Counsel for OEC appeared but did not present any new evidence on this request for reconsideration. Subsequently, a report and recommendation was issued recommending that NJ's underlying petition be denied. On January 31st, 2023, NJ filed exceptions to this recommendation, requesting that another hearing be held, but no such hearing was held. This matter is now ready for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and that NJ remain on the casino self-exclusion list.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
The final report and recommendation before the board today pertains to another request for removal from the interactive gaming self-exclusion list. An individual with the initials TSH filed a petition with the board on October 27, 2022, requesting removal from the list. A hearing in this matter was held on February 15, 2023. OEC appeared and presented testimony and documentary evidence. TSH failed to attend the hearing and it was held in her absence. Pursuant to the uncontested findings of fact in the report and recommendation, on October 1, 2022, TSH electronically submitted a request to be placed on the iGaming self-exclusion list for a period of 1 year. OEC presented evidence showing that TSH had properly filled out all of the self-exclusion paperwork and signed the acknowledgments choosing her exclusion period, acknowledging that although she was self-excluding from iGaming, that she could be prohibited from other forms of gaming in other jurisdictions. TSH stated in her petition that she regrets signing the forms, and she further stated that she was humiliated when celebrating her birthday in West Virginia when she was removed from the property due to being on the iGaming self-exclusion list. Ultimately, in the report and recommendation, the hearing officer recommends that TSH petition be denied and should remain on the self-exclusion list at this time. This matter is now ready for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and that TSH remain on the iGaming self-exclusion list.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is adopted.
That concludes the matters of the Office of Chief Counsel.
Thank you, Steve, Chad, and Robert. We will now have the Bureau of Licensing matters presented by the Director of the Bureau of Licensing, Sean Hannon. Sean?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Today's first licensing matter for your consideration is the renewal of Woodlands Fayette LLC doing business as Lady Luck Casino Nemacolin Category 3 license. The license renewal hearing for this entity is now complete. The Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement has completed its investigation of the company, and the Bureau of Licensing has provided you with a background investigation and suitability report regarding the renewal. As a result, the license renewal is ready for your consideration. I have provided you with a draft order and asked the board consider the order to renew the Category 3 license for Woodlands Fayette LLC.
Enforcement Counsel.
Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board grant the Category 3 license renewal as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Dillon seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
The next licensing matter for your consideration is approval of a table game manufacturer license for Nevada Gaming Chip. Formed in Nevada on December 17, 2014, Nevada Gaming Chip's principal place of business is in Las Vegas. The company is a manufacturer of casino chips and custom table game products and was granted interim authorization on May 4, 2023. Nevada Gaming Chip has asked the board to grant it a reduced licensing fee for its table game manufacturer license. The license fee for a manufacturer is $170,000 for an initial 5-year license. Under the Gaming Act, the board may modify the fee for a table game manufacturer if it determines that the fee will unreasonably limit table game devices or associated equipment. Consistent with this provision of the Act, the Bureau of Licensing has adopted a reduced licensing fee policy, which has previously been presented to the board. Nevada Gaming Chip has requested a reduced licensing fee of $0, which is consistent with the Bureau's policy. The Bureau of Licensing recommends the board grant the reduced fee. The Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement has completed its investigation of the company, and the Bureau of Licensing has provided you with a background investigation and suitability report. I have provided you with a draft order and asked the board consider the order to approve the table game manufacturer license for Nevada Gaming Chip with a reduced licensing fee of $0.
Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Chair, Commissioner Dillon moves that the board grant the table game manufacturer license as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Hickernell seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Next, we have consideration of the video game terminal manufacturer license renewal for Konami Gaming Incorporated. Konami Gaming Incorporated is licensed in good standing as a slot machine, table game, interactive gaming, and video game terminal manufacturer. Under the Gaming Act, the board may use an abbreviated process to consider the application of a currently licensed manufacturer. The Bureau of Licensing, Office of Enforcement Counsel, and the Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement has reviewed the abbreviated application for a video game terminal manufacturer license for Konami Gaming, and I have provided you with the results of that review. I have also provided you with a draft order and asked the board consider the order to approve the video game terminal manufacturer license for Konami Gaming.
Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Hickernell moves that the board grant the video gaming terminal manufacturer license renewal as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Manzano Diaz, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Next, there are principal, key employee, principal affiliate, and gaming service provider qualifier licenses. The Bureau of Licensing provided you with a proposed order for 16 principals, 32 key employees, 11 principal affiliates, and 2 gaming service provider qualifiers. I ask the board consider the order approving these licenses.
Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Manzano Diaz moves that the board grant the principal, key employee, principal affiliate, and gaming service provider qualifier licenses as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
There are also both principal and key employee temporary credentials. The Bureau of Licensing provided you with an order regarding the issuance of temporary credentials for 4 principals and 23 key employees. I ask the board consider the order approving these credentials.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board grant the temporary principal and key employee credentials as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes.
Additionally, for your consideration are gaming employee permits and non-gaming employee registrations. The Bureau of Licensing has provided you with a list of 530 individuals to whom the Bureau has granted temporary or full occupation permits and 197 individuals to whom the Bureau has granted registrations under the authority delegated to the Bureau of Licensing. I ask the board consider a motion approving the order.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Regan moves that the board approve the applications for gaming employee occupation permits and non-gaming employee registrations as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Dermody, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Next, there is a recommendation of denial for 3 gaming applicants and 4 non-gaming applicants. The applicants were notified that they were being recommended for denial and failed to request a hearing within the specified time frame. The Bureau of Licensing has provided you with the order addressing the applicants who the Office of Enforcement Council has recommended for denial. I ask the board consider the order approving these denials.
Enforcement Council continues to request denial in each matter.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board deny the gaming and non-gaming employee applications as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Dillon seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
The next matter for your consideration is withdrawal requests. In each case, the license, permit, or registration is no longer required. For today's meeting, I have provided the board with 6 key employees, 18 gaming, and 22 non-gaming applicants. I ask the board consider the orders approving these withdrawals.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dillon moves that the board grant the withdrawal of key employee, gaming, and non-gaming employee applications as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Hickernell seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
In addition, we have an order to renew the gaming service provider certifications for EGADS LLC, Hispanic Ventures Incorporated, Araya Solutions Incorporated, as well as initially certify ASF Ltd., doing business as Angstrom Sports. I have provided you with a draft order and ask the board consider the order certifying these companies.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Hickernell moves that the board approve the gaming service provider certifications as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Manzano Diaz, second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Finally, for your consideration are gaming service provider registrations. The Bureau of Licensing provided you with an order and an attached list of 12 registered gaming service provider applicants. I ask that the board consider the order registering these gaming service providers.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Manzano Diaz moves that the board adopt the gaming service provider registrations as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Sean. Next is Chief Enforcement Counsel Cyrus Petrie.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the board. The Office of Enforcement Counsel will present 19 more matters today for the board's consideration, in which we will request the approval of 1 consent agreement, 1 suspension, 5 revocations, and 12 involuntary exclusions. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a consent agreement between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and Category 1 licensee Chester Downs and Marina, doing business as Harris Philadelphia Casino and Racetrack. The matter will be presented by Assistant Enforcement Counsel Thomas Monahan. Representatives for the licensed entity are present. And at this time, I request that those individuals please introduce themselves for the record.
Good afternoon, Chair Smiler, members of the Commission. I'm Greg Bailey with the law firm of Blank Rome, here on behalf of Chester Downs and Marina, LLC, doing business as Harrah's Philadelphia Casino and Racetrack. With me today is Vice President of Casino Operations, Matthew Connor.
Good afternoon. Matthew Connor, C-O-N-N-E-R.
Is Mr. Connor needs to be sworn?
Good afternoon. Thomas Monahan, M-O-N-A-G-H-A-N, with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. This consent agreement involves underage access and underage gaming at Harrah's Philadelphia. On or about March 19th, 2021, a group of 5 underage patrons attempted to gain access to the Harrah's gaming floor, but were turned away by security. Subsequently, 4 of the underage individuals successfully gained access to Harrah's gaming floor. The identity of the underage individuals, along with the access points utilized, time on the gaming floor, and any gaming activity are as follows. A 20-year-old with the initials TR was able to walk past the security checkpoint onto the gaming floor without being stopped. TR was on the gaming floor for a total of approximately 1 hour and 13 minutes and played a slot machine for approximately 1 minute during that time. 3 other underage individuals entered the gaming floor by climbing over a glass wall partition that separated the gaming floor from the non-gaming area. The underage individuals accomplished this by standing on a couch and climbing over the glass wall partition. As a result, a 20-year-old individual with the initials XB was on the gaming floor for approximately 46 minutes. While on the gaming floor, XB sat at a blackjack table and bought in for $180. Table games personnel did not request identification from XB. XB gamed at the table game for approximately 5 minutes, then gamed at slot machines. A 17-year-old with the initials PR was on the game floor for approximately 1 minute and did not game. An 18-year-old individual with the initials OR was on the gaming floor for approximately 1 minute and did not game. Security apprehended the individuals with the exception of PR, notified the Pennsylvania State Police, and security confiscated $140 in gaming chips from XB. Criminal charges were filed against XB, TR, and OR, and they were issued permanent evictions. No alcohol was consumed by any of the underage individuals. The Office of Enforcement Counsel and Harrah's respectfully requests the Board approve the consent agreement and stipulations of settlement, which requires Harrah's to pay a civil penalty of $35,000, as well as a $2,500 administrative fee for costs incurred by Board staff in connection with this matter. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to address them at this time.
Harrah's, would you like to be heard by?
Yes, just briefly. We've heard the recitation of the facts as well as the terms of the consent agreement that have been outlined by the OEC. On behalf of Harrah's Philadelphia, we agree with those facts, and we agree with the terms of the conditions of the consent agreement. Harrah's wants to emphasize that it has a very strong culture of compliance and takes this issue very seriously, which is why we are here today to answer any questions regarding the consent agreement. And we ask that the Board approve the consent agreement.
Any questions or comments from the Board? I understand the couch has been removed.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other steps taken to prevent people from climbing over that wall?
No, ma'am.
And nobody has climbed over the wall since the couch was removed?
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the Board approve the consent agreement between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and Chester Downs and Marina, LLC, doing business as Harrah's Philadelphia Casino and Racetrack, as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Regan, seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted. Thank you.
Thank you.
And having handled the sports hub matter earlier, we'll move on. The next 6 matters on the agenda consist of enforcement actions in which the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed complaints seeking the revocation or suspension of gaming occupation permits or non-gaming registrations previously issued by the Board. The complaints in each matter have been filed with the Board's Office of Hearings and Appeal and properly served upon the individual named in each complaint. The individual named in each complaint failed to respond within 30 days as required by Board regulation. As a result, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a request for default judgment in each instance and properly served the same upon each respondent. Therefore, the facts in each complaint are deemed admitted. All filed documents have been provided to the Board, and the matters are presently ripe for the Board's consideration. In each matter, we will provide a brief summary of the facts and make a request for the appropriate Board action.
Thank you. Elizabeth Boehm, B-O-E-H-M, Assistant Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the Board's consideration is the suspension of the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Edward Womack. Mr. Womack was previously employed as a security officer by Harrah's Philadelphia Casino and Racetrack. Mr. Womack was issued a gaming employee occupation permit subject to special conditions concerning repayment of his outstanding costs and fees and fines owed to the Commonwealth subdivisions and a child support balance in collections. Mr. Womack signed and acknowledged this special statement of conditions. To date, Mr. Womack has failed to comply with the special statement of conditions. Mr. Womack is not currently employed in Pennsylvania's gaming industry. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board suspend the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Edward Womack.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board approve the suspension of Edward Womack's gaming employee occupation permit for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Dillon seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. Juan Sanchez, Juan-Sanchez, Assistant Enforcement Counsel for the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the revocation of the non-gaming employee registration issued to Waleed Malik. Mr. Malik was previously employed as a bartender at Live Philadelphia Casino. Mr. Malik was terminated for failing to charge for goods and taking goods and money belonging or owed to Live Philadelphia while working at the casino. The Pennsylvania State Police filed summary criminal theft charges against Mr. Malik, which he failed to report to the board. Mr. Malik paid restitution, and he is not currently employed in Pennsylvania's gaming industry. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests the board revoke the non-gaming employee registration issued to Waleed Malik.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dillon moves that the board approve the revocation of Waleed A. Malik's non-gaming employee registration for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Hickernell seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the revocation of the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Arthur Marks. Mr. Marks was previously employed as a drop and count clerk at Live Philadelphia Casino. Mr. Marks was terminated from his employment because he stole $525 currency from Live Philadelphia Casino count room while working at the casino. The Pennsylvania State Police filed misdemeanor criminal theft charges against Mr. Marks, which he failed to report to the board. Mr. Marks paid restitution, and he is not currently employed in Pennsylvania's gaming industry. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board revoke the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Arthur Marks.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Hickernell moves that the board approve the revocation of Arthur Marks's gaming employee occupation permit for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Manzano Diaz, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the revocation of the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Tyler Quinton. Mr. Quinton was previously employed as a valet attendant at Rivers Pittsburgh Casino. Tyler Quinton was terminated from his employment because he failed to charge for services and took money owed to Rivers Pittsburgh Casino while working. No charges were filed against Mr. Quinton, and he has not paid restitution to the casino. Unrelated to Mr. Quinton's theft while working at the casino, the Mount Lebanon Police Department cited Mr. Quinton with a summary retail theft offense, which he failed to report to the board. Mr. Quinton is not currently employed in Pennsylvania's gaming industry. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board revoke the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Tyler Quinton.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Manzano Diaz moves that the board approve the revocation of Tyler Quinton's gaming employee occupational permit for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Assistant Enforcement Counsel Steve Gorman, Gorman. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a revocation of the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Lena Carter. Ms. Carter was previously employed as a dealer at Rivers Philadelphia Casino. Ms. Carter was working in her official capacity when she stole chips from the poker table and placed them in her own tote box, treating them as if patrons had given her tips. Investigation revealed that over the course of 2 days, Ms. Carter stole $127 from the table. Ms. Carter was terminated after investigation. No criminal charges were filed. Ms. Carter is not currently employed in Pennsylvania's gaming industry. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board revoke the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Lena Carter.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board approve the revocation of Lena Carter's gaming employee occupation permit for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the revocation of the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Rhonda Gindelsberger. Ms. Gindelsberger was previously employed as a banker at Live Pittsburgh. Ms. Gindelsberger was working in her official capacity when she stole $2,100 in cash from the main bank. As a result, Ms. Gindelsberger was terminated. The Pennsylvania State Police charged her with felony theft by lawful taking. The Westmoreland County District Attorney's Office reduced the charge to a misdemeanor and placed her into the Accelerated Rehabilitative Disposition Program. She is not currently employed in the gaming industry and has made full restitution. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board revoke the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Rhonda Gindelsberger.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board approve the revocation of Rhonda Gindelsberger's gaming employee occupation permit for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Dermody, second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
The remaining matters on the agenda consist of enforcement actions in which the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed petitions seeking the involuntary exclusion of individuals whose presence in a licensed facility are inimical to the interests of the Commonwealth and are licensed gaming therein. In each instance, a petition for exclusion has been filed with the Board's Office of Hearings and Appeal and properly served upon the individual named in the petition. The individual named in each petition failed to respond within 30 days as required by board regulation. As a result, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a request for default judgment in each matter and properly served the same upon each individual. Therefore, all facts in each petition are deemed admitted, all filed documents have been provided to the board, and the matters are presently ripe for the board's consideration. In each instance, if the board orders the proposed exclusion, each individual's photo, personal identifiers, and a summary of the inimical conduct may be placed on the board's public website. Once again, in each matter, we will provide a summary of the facts and make a request for the appropriate board action.
Next matter on the agenda is a request to place Keisha Thompson on the involuntary exclusion list. Ms. Thompson was previously employed as a bar greeter at Rivers Pittsburgh, which is an unlicensed position. Ms. Thompson was working in her official capacity at Rivers when she stole a $100 bill from the register at the Wheelhouse Bar. Subsequent investigation revealed that Ms. Thompson stole at least $1,200 over a 2-month period by taking small amounts of cash from the registers multiple times. As a result, Ms. Thompson was terminated. The Pennsylvania State Police charged Ms. Thompson with misdemeanor theft by lawful taking, and she subsequently pled guilty to that offense. Ms. Thompson was permanently evicted from the casino. She's not currently employed in the gaming industry. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board place Keisha Thompson on the involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board approve the addition of Keisha Thompson to the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board's involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Dillon seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Good afternoon, Dustin Miller, once again on behalf of the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda is a request to place Sultan Akbar on the involuntary exclusion list. Mr. Akbar attempted to bring a 2-year-old child onto the gaming floor at Valley Forge Casino Resort. After being escorted off the gaming floor, Mr. Akbar returned to his vehicle with the child, drove to a different parking lot, and then left the child unattended in the vehicle. Mr. Akbar attempted to re-enter Valley Forge but was denied entry. Mr. Akbar was escorted to his vehicle and left the property. The child was unattended for approximately 2 minutes. Pennsylvania State Police and Upper Merion Police were notified of the activity, and Mr. Akbar was charged for his conduct and banned for life from Valley Forge. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requested the board place Sultan Akbar on the involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dillon moves that the board approve the addition of Sultan Akbar to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Hickernell seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a request to place Christian Dyer on the board's involuntary exclusion list. Mr. Dyer assaulted 2 members of the Hollywood Casino at Penn National security staff after he was denied entry to the casino for showing signs of intoxication. Mr. Dyer was charged with public drunkenness and harassment for his actions and pled guilty to both charges. He was permanently evicted from Hollywood Casino at Penn National. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board place Christian Dyer on the involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Hickernell moves that the board approve the addition of Christian Dyer to the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board's involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Manzano Diaz, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a request to place Jamaica Johnson on the board's involuntary exclusion list. Ms. Johnson observed a patron at Rivers Pittsburgh and followed him as he left the casino. Ms. Johnson followed the patron to his home and then robbed the patron at gunpoint. During the robbery, Ms. Johnson pistol whipped the patron. The patron was taken to the hospital with injuries to his face and head. Ms. Johnson was charged with aggravated assault, robbery, carrying a firearm without a license, theft, receiving stolen property, and reckless endangerment. Ms. Johnson pled guilty to all charges. Ms. Johnson was also permanently evicted from Rivers Pittsburgh for her actions. This time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requested the board place Jamaica Johnson on the involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Manzano Diaz moves that the board approve the addition of Jamaica Johnson to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes.
The next matter on the agenda is a request to place Todd Reppert on the interactive gaming involuntary exclusion list. Mr. Reppert opened a Barstool Sportsbook interactive gaming account and made 76 deposits, all using the same device and credit card account, totaling $64,250. Over the course of several months, Mr. Reppert's wagering activity resulted in him losing $66,195. Subsequently, Mr. Reppert failed or refused to pay $31,000 that he owed to Barstool as a result of his gaming activity. Barstool has suspended Mr. Reppert's account. This time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board place Todd Reppert on the interactive gaming involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board approve the addition of Tom Reppert to PGCB involuntary iGaming exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Good afternoon. Once again, Kelsey Scrotto with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a request to place Shannon Johnson on the board's involuntary exclusion list. Mr. Johnson left 2 children, ages 6 and 11, in his car while he went to the main cage inside Rivers Casino, Philadelphia. The children were discovered by a security officer 3 minutes after Mr. Johnson left the vehicle. He was away from the vehicle for approximately 5 minutes. Mr. Johnson was not criminally charged and received a lifetime ban from Rivers, Philadelphia. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board place Shannon Johnson on the involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board approve the addition of Shannon Johnson to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a request to place Mohammed Rizwan on the board's involuntary exclusion list. Mr. Rizwan cheated at Parks Casino by past posting his bets several times on the same date while playing roulette. He was evicted by Parks for 48 hours but was not criminally charged. He has not paid restitution. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board place Mohammed Rizwan on the involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board approve the addition of Mohammed Rizwan to the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board's involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Dillon seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Good afternoon, John Crow again for the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the petition to place Marco Lisi on the interactive gaming involuntary exclusion list. Mr. Lisi opened an interactive gaming account on the TwinSpires platform. Mr. Lisi made 52 deposits totaling $4,355. Over the course of several months, Mr. Lisi's wagering activity resulting in him losing all of the money that he deposited. Subsequently, Mr. Lisi failed or refused to pay $650 that was owed to TwinSpires as a result of his gaming activity. TwinSpires suspended Mr. Lisi's account. The Office of Enforcement Counsel now requests that the board place Marco Lisi on the interactive gaming and voluntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dillon moves that the board approve the addition of Marco Lisi to the PGCB involuntary iGaming exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Hickernell, seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Good afternoon, Sarah Colasar, Kolesar, Enforcement Counsel with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a request to place Jaquez McLaughlin on the board's involuntary exclusion list. Mr. McLaughlin left a 13-year-old and a 3-year-old in the parking lot of Rivers Casino, Philadelphia. Mr. McLaughlin left the children unattended for 2 minutes and 48 seconds prior to security personnel arriving on the scene, and he was away from the vehicle for a total of 9 minutes. No criminal charges were filed in this matter. As a result of this incident, Mr. McLaughlin was permanently evicted from the premises. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board place Jaquez McLaughlin on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Hickernell moves that the board approve the addition of Jaquez McLaughlin to the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Manzano-Diaz, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a request to place David Williams on the board's involuntary exclusion list. Mr. Williams left a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old unattended in his vehicle in the Rivers Casino Pittsburgh parking garage. The children were unattended for 9 minutes prior to security personnel arriving on the scene. Mr. Williams was away from the vehicle for a total of 14 minutes. No criminal charges were filed in connection with this incident. As a result of this incident, Mr. Williams was permanently evicted from the premises. At this time, OEC requests that the board place David Williams on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Manzano-Diaz moves that the board approve the addition of David Williams to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Ralston, seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Thomas Monahan, once again with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. Next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a request to place Brent Morris on the board's involuntary exclusion list. Mr. Morris cheated while playing craps by past posting wagers at Harris, Philadelphia and Live Philadelphia. He was criminally charged and permanently evicted from both Harris and Live Philadelphia for his actions. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests the board place Brent Morris on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board approve the addition of Brent Morris to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Regan, seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
The final matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a request to place Daniel Tavares on the board's involuntary exclusion list. Mr. Tavares attempted to rob a patron in the parking lot of Mount Airy Casino, but was not successful. Mr. Tavares was wearing a ski mask and in possession of a firearm at the time. He was criminally charged for his actions. This time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board place Daniel Tavares on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Regan moves that the board approve the addition of Daniel Tavares to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Dermody, seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Madam Chair, prior to closing out, I'd just like to recognize the retirement of Senior Enforcement Counsel James Armstrong. Jim was a valued member of our staff. Jim is retiring tomorrow after 10 and a half years with the PGCB and close to 40 years as a regulator in the gaming industry. He previously served over 25 years with the New Jersey Division of Gaming Enforcement. So I'd just like to wish Jim well in his retirement and take the time to recognize him. Thank you.
Oh, we wish him well, too. And
that concludes our matters for today.
Well, thank you very much. The last item on the agenda today is public comment. As I understand it, Eric Epstein has signed up to make a public comment. Mr. Epstein.
I'll try and make it as brief as possible. This has been a pretty long meeting.
You have 3 minutes, sir.
Yeah, I know. I'm keenly aware that I have 180 seconds. I wish some of the other people would have observed that decorum. So there's two issues I just want to revisit. And you know, our focus has been on child abandonment violations at casino properties. So we did right to know requests. You're going to get a copy of those. And the inventory began back in 2017. It was really base and not a lot there. As the years went on, a little better, 2018, 2019, 2021, 22, 23 are really good. And so my suggestion is, if it's at all possible, if you can excavate going back to 2017, because if you start looking at the data here, it's inconsistent and it's troubling as time goes on. So I don't know if these incidents didn't occur. The other issue, and we saw it today, is that there's a prosecution every time there's a theft or a theft by deception. Rarely, I shouldn't say rarely, under 50% of the time is there a prosecution when a child is abandoned. I think it would send a strong signal to the people who do this. Now, by the way, if you notice the trajectory, it's pretty quickly that they identify children that are abandoned. But it's also rare that they're prosecuted, and I have a difficulty with that. Suggestion I made in December is the same suggestion I would have made today regarding Cumberland counties and Monroe counties. All these casinos have state police, and so you're giving out local share money. At some point, I would make the contingency that if you're going to give out local share money, that money paid for by the casinos offset prosecution. I've been involved in the criminal justice system for a long time, and if you're going to send a signal, I think prosecuting folks, and you guys do that for a lot of other things that occur. The final point I would make is, and hopefully you'll look at the information we supplied, and I want to thank your folks. 2017, there was only 3 documented cases of child abandonment. The next year was 29, the next year 56, the next year 27. So if we're going to take this seriously, my suggestion would be, and you may already be doing it, we talked about today contiguous borders, developing a best practices model. It's possible that West Virginia, Maryland, Ohio has a system in place or pulled together that would help us really find a deterrent for this. I don't know that these crimes are escalating more than we're just reporting them more than we have in the past. So I have the testimony, and then I also have from 2017 to 2023 on the information provided your staff, the documentation of child abandonments. Final thing, cursory and just an observation. If you look at the casinos for which these activities take place, they're the same casinos. You know, you may want to trend this out and think about increased oversight at casinos where this occurs. Just an observation, anecdotal, but if you track it, as we had recommended, I think you'll come to the same conclusion.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the board at this time? If not, that concludes today's meeting. The next public meeting of the board will be held on Wednesday, July 26, 2023 at 10 a.m. at this location. And now may I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that we adjourn this meeting.
Commissioner Dillon seconds.
All in favor? Aye. Motion's adopted. We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.